young guy's secret crush on a man was caught by his friend. The friend said he would keep the secret, but instead made a demand. Try it with him. That day, while the man wasn't back yet, the young guy wanted to take the chance to run away, because he knew very clearly, once he smelled that pungent, suffocating fragrance, everything would really be too late. But what he didn't know was, right then someone behind him was gripping a bat, slowly, unhurriedly following. At a corner, the man suddenly appeared, looking to the young guy like he was hunting him down, as if he were reminding his prey, "You shouldn't be running this way." He hesitated for a moment, and was so scared that his whole body froze on the spot. The next second, he suddenly spun around and bolted. The man gave him an opening. If he could run out to the road, he'd spare him this once. Even though his vision was starting to blur, the young guy still desperately wanted to seize this chance. But just as he was about to reach the road, the man behind him swung the bat and knocked him flat to the ground in one blow. The young guy felt nothing but despair inside. The man grabbed him by the hair, and all he could do was beg for mercy again and again. The man stared at him with eyes so cold they made him tense up. He was doing so well, why did he suddenly try to run? Cough. He was doing so well, why did he suddenly try to run? He never expected his crush to be this rough. The young guy was shaking with fear, but even so, the man did not soften in the slightest. He had originally thought the man wouldn't come today, but in the end he still got caught. Instead, the man decided he would drop by to check on him from time to time, No one had anticipated this kind of unbalanced relationship, right? Time rewinds to 2 years ago. On a scorching hot day, the young guy, carrying popsicles he had just bought, went to the man's place. When he rang the doorbell, he heard a familiar voice from upstairs. It was him. The man's name was Seo Haeyeong, the one the young man had a crush on. Hearing him call his name, the young man's ears instantly flushed red. His gaze darted away, not daring to meet his eyes. As soon as he came in, his first reaction was, "Where is Seo Haeyeong?" Just then, a voice he least wanted to hear sounded from behind him. It was Go Taegyeom. The moment Go Taegyeom saw him, the corners of his mouth lifted, and he immediately started teasing him. But the young man didn't buy it at all. His face stayed cold. Suddenly, a hand reached out from behind and gently tugged at the hem of his shirt, asking softly, "What did you buy?" He turned his head, and his face bumped right into Seo Haeyeong's. The young man's heartbeat suddenly went wild, and his face turned even redder. He hurriedly handed over the popsicle, as if trying to hide his panic. But Seo Haeyeong held the popsicle and instead started hesitating over it. There were only 3 flavors anyway. He watched as Seo Haeyeong unwrapped the red bean flavor. Clearly, Seo Haeyeong didn't even like that one. Only a second later did he realize that this one was actually meant for the young man's crush. And yet it was brought right up to his own lips. Whoosh, he was really being fed the popsicle. Why did this scene look so much like that kind of thing? Seo Haeyeong, however, was quite pleased, smiling softly. Beside them, Go Taegyeom's expression changed on the spot, obviously jealous. What's even more infuriating is that the last one isn't even his favorite flavor, so he starts complaining. The guy just snaps back, "Eat it or don't." The ice pop in the guy's hand has already melted and is dripping down. Go Taegyeom actually leans in and takes a lick, leaving the guy completely stunned. "Are you crazy?" Go Taegyeom even acts like he's giving a review, deliberately making a crunchy sha-sha-sha sound. With a totally serious face, he says, "As expected, red bean is still the best." Seeing this scene from behind them, Seo Haeyeong's expression instantly darkens, and he coldly tosses out, "Disgusting." The air freezes at once, the awkwardness almost suffocating. The guy immediately turns and heads to the restroom, wanting to catch his breath. But Go Taegyeom follows him in, because the guy always uses work as an excuse and won't answer his calls. So Go Taegyeom simply pulls out some cash, saying he wants to buy his time to talk. In the end, he only buys 10 minutes, but that's enough. Go Taegyeom stops circling around and directly pulls the guy into his arms. Pressing close to him, Go Taegyeom says, "Didn't I tell you I'd keep your secret?" Seo Haeyeong brings up the time you kissed him on the lips while he was asleep, lowers his voice and says, "In exchange, have the guy rehearse with me." Ahem, faced with a request like that, the guy doesn't want to talk to him anymore. Just as he's about to leave, he runs right into Seo Haeyeong coming in. Seo Haeyeong gives a little smile. The guy panics instantly. Behind him, Go Taegyeom also curled his lips into a very meaningful smile. The young man's family background wasn't as good as theirs, and he went out to work right after graduating from high school. He worked desperately to make money, but reality still didn't get any better, and the money was only enough for daily expenses. Not to mention the inherited debts, plus the interest snowballing bigger and bigger. After he met Seo Haeyeong, He would send the young man all kinds of strange photos every few days. His hobbies changed one after another, but the young man was the one he had never replaced. He knew very well they were not people from the same world, but the young man still fell for this kind of Seo Haeyeong. One day when he went home, he suddenly found that his front door was open. His first reaction was, could it be a burglar? He pushed the door open and took a look. Turns out it was Go Taegyeom. Go Taegyeom directly yanked him over and said he wanted to do some love counseling, because he had long since known about the young man secretly kissing Seo Haeyeong. This time, using drinking as an excuse, he wanted to coax the young man's true feelings out of him. The way the young man looked after getting drunk even made Go Taegyeom's heart beat faster. Go Taegyeom stared at him with a serious face. Try it with me. Just once, pretend it's with Seo Haeyeong. Just treat it as a continuation of the earlier rehearsal. What kind of insane statement was that? Yet, under Go Taegyeom's coaxing, the young man still nodded. After it really started, the young man kept resisting. Clearly, they had just agreed that they would stop as soon as he didn't want to continue. At this moment, something Go Taegyeom said made the young man swallow his grievance in silence. In high school, there was a classmate who accidentally touched Seo Haeyeong's thigh and ended up being beaten half to death by him. Even though Seo Haeyeong was clearly good friends with him, he still went at him ruthlessly. The young man was the same. He had once received strange photos sent by Seo Haeyeong. He was afraid that if Seo Haeyeong found out about this, he would end up like that classmate. He could only pretend to be obedient, only submit, but he was still torn who was on top and who was on the bottom. Go Taegyeom suggested they use rock, paper, scissors to decide. Obviously, the young man lost. Halfway through, Seo Haeyeong called. Without even thinking, Go Taegyeom answered, then held the phone to the young man's ear, playing with him while talking to the person on the other end. When he woke up the next day, his stomach churned violently. He rushed into the bathroom and vomited until he was shaking. Recalling everything from the night before, the young man burst into tears and couldn't stop. Gritting his teeth, he still dialed Seo Haeyeong's number. Fortunately, the voice on the other end of the line was still the same as before. It was exactly this voice that the young man had always wanted. Even what happened last night with Go Taegyeom, that practice, was only so that one day he could be together with Seo Haeyeong. But in the next second, Seo Haeyeong said on the phone, he already had someone he liked. The man shook the half-left donut and casually asked the boy, "Have you used it?" Hearing Seo Haeyeong say he already had someone he liked, the boy froze for a long time, unable to squeeze out a single word. Yet Seo Haeyeong was asking him to come over and hang out. If he really went, what was he supposed to say? The boy racked his brain but still couldn't figure out who that person was. He could only desperately comfort himself. It's okay. This doesn't count as anything, but he still couldn't turn down an invitation from his crush. The marks on his neck couldn't be covered up no matter what. But even if Seo Haeyeong saw them, would he care? When he arrived at Seo Haeyeong's place, Go Taegyeom was there too. The boy acted as if he hadn't seen him at all. Go Taegyeom stared at the marks he'd left on the boy's body. He gave a mocking smile. Here to play? No ice cream today? Really no ice cream today? Without even turning his head, the boy coldly replied, "No." Only after he saw Seo Haeyeong did he finally break into a smile. Seo Haeyeong, however, was very relaxed, lying straight down on the bed. The boy was like a little puppy, too happy to hide it. As soon as he walked closer, Seo Haeyeong asked bluntly, "So there's nothing you want to say to yourself?" The boy was scared stiff on the spot. Had Go Taegyeom told him everything? His heart suddenly sank with a thud. It didn't look like that though, so the young man followed his original plan and asked Seo Haeyeong in return, "Who is your partner?" Facing this question, Seo Haeyeong's tone was very flat, as if he hadn't heard the young man's nervousness. The more the young man wanted to know, the more deliberately Seo Haeyeong refused to say, keeping him on the hook. Clearly, they had agreed before that they would talk about it when they met. The young man still wanted to complain a couple of sentences, but as soon as his eyes met Seo Haeyeong's gaze, the young man started to panic again. He kept feeling that Seo Haeyeong seemed to know something. This was when Go Taegyeom had asked him to come over and help carry some things. Right then, of all times, Seo Haeyeong called and said he was going out for a bit. Urged on by Go Taegyeom, the young man, with a face full of reluctance, still walked over to stand in front of Go Taegyeom. In the end, the so-called something came up was a total lie. This guy even dared to fool around in Seo Haeyeong's home. Seeing the young man not cooperating, Go Taegyeom started using his words to threaten him again. Even so, the two of them still hurriedly wrapped things up before Seo Haeyeong came back. When Seo Haeyeong returned, he only saw them playing video games. But the next second, he noticed beside him, the young man was actually crying. Seo Haeyeong thought he was crying because he lost the game, and couldn't help but laugh. Haha. At that moment, it was as if Seo Haeyeong sensed something. He raised his hand and directly pulled open the young man's collar. The young man immediately turned around and hurriedly covered himself with his hands. He saw that Seo Haeyeong was pinching a strand of hair between his fingertips. The young man was almost scared speechless. Had he really not seen anything at all? After a whole day of part-time work, the young man dragged his exhausted body, ready to go home, thinking that once he got home, he could finally have a good rest. But as soon as he walked in, someone yanked him over. Go Taegyeom had been waiting here for a while. I'm already this tired. Why is it him again? The young man struggled desperately, but it was still useless. After exercising, he was drenched in sweat again. Go Taegyeom glanced at the clothes in the young man's wardrobe and was immediately disgusted. Looks like he'll have to bring his own clothes next time. At that moment, he received a text from Seo Haeyeong. Go Taegyeom let out a meaningful chuckle, then turned and left. Who knows how many more times Go Taegyeom is going to mess around before he finally stops. He clearly really hates him, yet his body still reacts during the process. Even if Go Taegyeom doesn't say it, the young man knows very well. Seo Haeyeong has never been a kind person, but he just likes him. Suddenly, a burst of knocking startled him awake, and the young man turned pale on the spot. Why would Seo Haeyeong come at this exact moment? He hurriedly straightened things up, then braced himself and opened the door. Seo Haeyeong brought his favorite ice pops and started looking around after coming in. The young man couldn't help secretly sneaking glances at what he was doing the whole time. Go Taegyeom's clothes were already hidden. As long as no one rummaged through the trash can, they wouldn't be found. Just as he was about to heave a sigh of relief, he suddenly heard Seo Haeyeong call him. He saw Seo Haeyeong shake the half-eaten donut in his hand. Plop. The young man had just woken up and was so scared by the fritter next to him that he burst into tears on the spot. Seo Haeyeong picked up that half donut and asked him in a low voice, "Did you use this?" The young man rushed up and snatched it away in one go. With his face flushed red, he looked at Seo Haeyeong in front of him, having no idea how to respond. He could only turn his head to the side and force himself to appear calm. It was obvious that Seo Haeyeong had already seen through him. He watched the young man hastily stuff the thing away. Seo Haeyeong only asked one question, "Do you like it?" The young man's entire face instantly turned crimson with embarrassment. He hurried to play dumb, insisting it was something someone else had left behind. Seo Haeyeong pressed on, asking who had just been there. In fact, there were only 5 people in total who had a key to the young man's place. The one who could have left this thing could only be Go Taegyeom among them. But the young man couldn't tell Seo Haeyeong the truth, even if he really didn't like Go Taegyeom. What was worse was that Seo Haeyeong and Go Taegyeom were good friends. The young man didn't want Seo Haeyeong to suspect that there was something between Go Taegyeom and himself. Thought and thought, tangled up until he felt numb. The young man still wrote down a name that was not Go Taegyeom, Ju Hyeon-woo. Then, just like that, Seo Haeyeong spent the night at his place. After lying down, the more he tried to sleep, the more restless he became. His whole body felt ill at ease. Half asleep, Seo Haeyeong asked him, "Don't you have a fan?" But the truth was, the reason he felt so hot wasn't the weather at all. It was Seo Haeyeong. He turned his head and looked at Seo Haeyeong lying next to him. The young man still couldn't hold back and asked him, "Who exactly was the person you mentioned before? The one you're seeing?" Because he really cared. He pressed on, "Tomorrow, are you going to meet that person?" Hearing this, Seo Haeyeong opened his eyes and gave him a faint glance. He turned over to face the young man directly and said with a smile, "We already broke up." In that instant, the young man's heart suddenly leapt. So excited he couldn't even tell why. But the very next second, Seo Haeyeong added, "I was lying." Maybe he was muddled with sleep and just said it casually, but that back and forth yanked the young man's emotions straight up to the peak, then slammed them down hard, like riding a roller coaster. The young man looked at the soundly sleeping Seo Haeyeong beside him, and only then did he understand. He was actually this easily shaken, swayed by just a random line from him. The person he likes is right next to him, yet he can't say anything, can't do anything. This is practically a form of torture. He has had a secret crush on Seo Haeyeong for a full 5 years. In that long, painfully drawn-out stretch of time, the young man's heart changed again and again. At first, he only felt, as long as he could stay by Seo Haeyeong's side, that was enough. Later, he began to think, if he could just hold Seo Haeyeong's hand, that would be great. After that, he even wanted to touch those lips. The more he thought, the more chaotic it became, and he still couldn't suppress that throb in his chest. After that, The young man had many dreams about Seo Haeyeong, and even acted on impulse and did some very crazy things, just wanting to get a step closer to him. He felt that if he stayed any longer he would really go insane. So he simply went into the bathroom to take a cold shower and forced himself to calm down. But his mind still wouldn't behave and kept thinking of Seo Haeyeong until he completely let himself go, wanting to do with Seo Haeyeong those things he had done with Go Taegyeom. In a daze, he felt his body become so light it seemed to float, as if he were in a dream, and as if someone were pressed up against him, groping around. The young man couldn't tell whether that was Go Taegyeom or someone else. When he woke up the next day, his head was still dizzy, but Seo Haeyeong, who had been beside him, was already gone. He turned his head and was directly startled by the youtiao next to him. How could this thing be here? Right after that, he received a text message from Seo Haeyeong telling Ju Hyeon-woo to keep a better eye on his things. Ju Hyeon-woo pulled open the young man's drawer. There was actually still half a donut left inside. 2 weeks had passed since Seo Haeyeong left last time. The young man quit his previous job at a convenience store and went to work as a waiter in a bar, because at the convenience store, when there were no customers, he could only stand there in a daze. Once he spaced out alone, his thoughts would run wild. But at the bar, he could keep taking orders non-stop, delivering food, settling bills. Once he got busy, he could temporarily drive Seo Haeyeong out of his mind. But as soon as he saw a message from Seo Haeyeong, he felt he couldn't go on like this. In the past, if Seo Haeyeong didn't get a reply, she would keep sending messages until he answered, or she would just call directly. But this time, Seo Haeyeong was so quiet it felt chilling. Even Go Taegyeom had stopped messaging him. This sense of emptiness made the young man increasingly uneasy. He edited his message many times, but every time it still felt wrong. He also didn't want to drag Ju Hyeon-woo into this. He kept hesitating, and with one slip of his hand, the message was sent anyway. The other party read it instantly. The young man was scared on the spot. If I'd known, I wouldn't have sent it. The tone sounds like I'm just informing her. Thankfully, a reply came right away, even though it was just one word. But it instantly cleared away the anxiety he had been holding in for 2 weeks. This young lady was the bar owner, and when she heard the young man was finally willing to come work here, she was overjoyed. Previously, when the young man came to the bar to hang out, she had tried to persuade him several times to come work here, but the young man refused them all. Back then, he only felt like he was being given charity. But this time, he was truly grateful to her. The boss even praised him, saying he looked even more handsome dressed like this. The young man's ears burned at the compliment, and just as he was about to avoid their gaze, he suddenly heard another voice, echoing the boss's praise. The three of them turned around together. It was Ju Hyeon-woo. After graduating from high school, he had gone straight abroad to study. He used to frequent the young man's house just like Seo Haeyeong did. At first, he was only Go Taegyeom's friend. Later on, no one knew exactly how, but he became very close to the young man. So close that going to his house was like going back to his own. After learning about the young man's situation, he and the bar owner had even helped him together. A year had passed, yet he was still the same as before, gentle and kind. After work, he asked the young man out for a drink. As soon as they started talking about Seo Haeyeong, the young man immediately grew a little flustered, not knowing how to respond. After that, whatever Ju Hyeon-woo said, he didn't really listen carefully. Touching the phone in his pocket, his mind was filled with Seo Haeyeong. That guy should be asleep by now, right? And that text message from just now. The more he thought about it, the less he could let it go. It was only when Ju Hyeon-woo called him several times in a row that he suddenly snapped back to himself. Ju Hyeon-woo said, "I heard you and Go Taegyeom meet up a lot?" The young man was thrown off by the question on the spot. The young man hurriedly explained. They had only gotten in touch once a few days ago, and he'd been totally drunk. He immediately used "let's go eat" as an excuse to pull the topic away. How could that question even come up? The more he thought about it, the more wrong it felt. A chill ran through his heart, like something bad was about to happen. The two of them drank until they blacked out, and Ju Hyeon-woo directly slung the young man over his shoulder and carried him home. The young man complained that his shirt collar was choking him and uncomfortable, so Ju Hyeon-woo reached out to unbutton it for him, but his movements grew more and more hesitant. Yet in the next second, his whole body froze. The young man's body was covered in hickeys. Ju Hyeon-woo's first reaction: did he get a girlfriend? But the young man had never mentioned it. At this moment, the young man frowned again, saying his belt was too tight, and asked Ju Hyeon-woo to help him. Adam's apple bobbing, Ju Hyeon-woo swallowed subconsciously. In the end, he still reached out and unfastened it for him. Those long, blindingly white legs made it impossible for Ju Hyeon-woo to look away. He couldn't help himself. He raised his hand and touched them, as if to confirm something. Of all times, the young man suddenly sat up, startling him so much he jolted, and very naturally said, "The toothbrush is in the drawer." The young man's steps were unsteady, swaying as he walked toward the bedroom. Standing where he was, Ju Hyeon-woo was left with only one thought in his mind. Am I drunk and muddled too? When he pulled open the drawer to look for the toothbrush, he instead saw a box of 10 donuts with only 5 left. In other words, the cream had already been squeezed out 5 times. A heaviness sank in Ju Hyeon-woo's chest, a sour tightness spreading there. He certainly has the right to date a girlfriend. That's perfectly normal, but the guy just happens to be too good-looking with a great personality, and every part of him makes it hard for people to look away. The moment he thought that the guy might already have a girlfriend, Ju Hyeon-woo couldn't help feeling dejected. At this moment, the guy came out after finishing his shower. Ju Hyeon-woo immediately turned his head away, afraid the guy would see how flushed his face was. But in that instant, when he glanced sideways, he caught sight of a hickey on the guy's back, and his heartbeat instantly spun out of control. The guy planned to go to Seo Haeyeong's house the next day to ask whether he would come along. After all, they were old classmates, so Ju Hyeon-woo quickly agreed. At that moment, the guy made another request. He hoped Ju Hyeon-woo could say that he had been here 2 weeks ago. Ju Hyeon-woo was stunned and didn't understand what he meant. Say it to whom? The young man suddenly felt even more embarrassed and explained. If Seo Haeyeong asks about it, please ask Ju Hyeon-woo to help by saying it this way, even though he can't even clearly explain the reason. Ju Hyeon-woo still nodded and agreed, and he conveniently followed up with a question. When did you get a girlfriend? The guy was amused by him. What girlfriend? How could that be possible? That answer dispelled Ju Hyeon-woo's doubts. Then these marks weren't left by a girlfriend. So who would it be? The next day, the guy and Ju Hyeon-woo went together to Seo Haeyeong's house. Ju Hyeon-woo said he was going to the bathroom, so the young man could only go upstairs alone first. He had brought Ju Hyeon-woo along this time because he was afraid of running into Go Taegyeom and Seo Haeyeong together. He wanted Ju Hyeon-woo to help divert Go Taegyeom's attention so that man wouldn't keep staring at him. But the more he thought about it, the more uneasy he felt, with a constant sense that Go Taegyeom and Seo Haeyeong were upstairs right now, and his steps grew heavier and heavier, as if weighed down by something. Ever since Seo Haeyeong left the young man's place last time, he hadn't responded to him at all for a whole week. This was far too unusual. What was worse, he had also discovered the donuts, the fried dough sticks, and that belt in the young man's home. There's no way Seo Haeyeong wouldn't overthink it, but Seo Haeyeong is supposed to like girls, right? Maybe he doesn't understand these things. The young man could only cling to a sliver of hope, yet he was still so nervous he was panicking, silently repeating to himself all the way, "It's fine." He slowly pushed the door open. Sure enough, the two of them were both inside. The next second, the oppressive aura of the two of them rushed straight at him. They didn't say a single word, yet their gazes seemed to be pulled, landing on the young man in unison. The young man even felt that time stopped in that instant. There was no contempt and no disgust in their eyes. But precisely because of that, the young man felt a chill rise from the bottom of his heart, as if something had set its sights on him. He hesitated. Should he go in or run away right now? But hadn't he come today precisely to see Seo Haeyeong? The person was right in front of him. At this moment, Ju Hyeon-woo stepped forward and forcibly broke the stalemate. Laughing and joking, he rushed up to Go Taegyeom to reminisce, and the atmosphere on the spot instantly warmed up. Taking advantage of this brief opening, the young man slowly walked towards Seo Haeyeong. He softly called out to Seo Haeyeong once, but to Seo Haeyeong, that Seo Haeyeong sounded piercingly cold. The young man still voiced what he had in mind. He said he wanted to talk with Seo Haeyeong alone later, so Seo Haeyeong led him into the study. Seo Haeyeong raised a hand in a gesture, telling him to sit on the desk. At a glance, the young man saw a framed photo of Seo Haeyeong and himself on the desk. He reached out and carefully picked up the photo. Seo Haeyeong showed that old familiar smile, and his hand came up to cover it as well. The young man's face flushed out of his control, and Seo Haeyeong asked why he was dressed so nicely today. Seo Haeyeong was actually complimenting him on how good he looked. The young man was instantly so happy he felt hot all over, and quickly said he had changed part-time jobs. This was the bar uniform, and since he had to work later, he had just worn it straight over. The Seo Haeyeong in front of him was still wearing a smile, looking just the same as before. All of the young man's unease vanished in this very second. In the next moment, however, Seo Haeyeong slowly moved closer to him. Seo Haeyeong told the young man to make this kind of smiling face, which sounded a bit strange. The young man still did as he was told. At this moment, the young man still hadn't realized what was going to happen next. Seo Haeyeong raised his hand and directly gave him a slap. The young man was knocked to the ground on the spot. In a low voice, Seo Haeyeong asked him, How many hits do you want to take? The young man had no idea what was happening and froze, so he couldn't answer. Seo Haeyeong pressed him again. How many hits do you want to take? The young man trembled even harder. I still have to go to work later. I'm sorry, I'll answer properly. But this wasn't what Seo Haeyeong wanted to hear at all. Seo Haeyeong directly grabbed his face, then tightened his fingers and clamped down on his neck. It was as if he took back all his gentleness. His gaze turned cold and hard as he stared straight at the young man. The young man had just turned around to start cooking when someone quietly came up close behind him. Seo Haeyeong's hand was just as vicious as ever. The sharp pain crashed down. A rusty taste filled his mouth, and the young man suddenly recalled those two from before, Seokyeon and Xiaoyu. Back then he was still in middle school, had just arrived in a new environment, made new friends, and was beside himself with excitement. So without even noticing, he ended up leaving Seo Haeyeong off to the side. He probably refused the messages from Seo Haeyeong more than 3 times. Later, Seo Haeyeong called him to an empty music classroom. The young man was still foolishly happy and walked in. He saw Seo Haeyeong standing inside, still smiling. The next second, Seo Haeyeong slowly came closer and then suddenly kicked him hard. He was kicked flying on the spot, and the drum set next to him was knocked over as well. The young man trembled so much that he couldn't speak, completely unaware of what he had done wrong. At that time, Seo Haeyeong was training in swimming, and his build and strength both surpassed the young man's. That scene was just like his domestically violent father. That day, the young man was beaten up hard by Seo Haeyeong, yet he actually didn't feel angry, nor did he feel wronged, because he had always been soft and had long lived in violence. Submission only grew heavier and heavier for him. When that bout of violence, both long and brief, finally stopped, Seo Haeyeong only threw 3 demands at him. First, he was not allowed to ignore his messages. He must not refuse Seo Haeyeong's invitations and had to obediently do as told. The young man could only nod over and over, agreeing to every sentence. At this moment, Seo Haeyeong was still wearing that excessively satisfied smile. After that, Seo Haeyeong dragged the young man back to his own home and casually treated his wounds, as if to make amends. Yet, as he smiled, he fed the chocolate into the young man's mouth. The young man, facing him with his badly swollen face from the beating, still had to obediently eat the chocolate. But after that, he was never beaten so badly again, because later on he always listened to what Seo Haeyeong said. The young man could only keep comforting himself over and over. As long as he got through the beating, the problem would be solved, so it was okay. After all, he knew that even if he felt wronged, cried, or screamed, the other party would not stop. So he simply let himself be beaten obediently, so that everything would end faster. He just couldn't tell from when that so-called protective mechanism for resisting violence had already started to crumble bit by bit. This time, Seo Haeyeong asked him again, "How many hits do you want to take?" The young man stayed silent and raised his hand to show 3. In the next second, without the slightest hesitation, Seo Haeyeong lifted his hand and struck him hard. Throughout the entire process, the young man didn't resist at all, only stood there trembling. When it was over, Seo Haeyeong leaned close to his ear and snapped his fingers. He asked him, "Can you hear that?" The young man's eyes were full of tears, and he only let out a soft Then Seo Haeyeong unwrapped a piece of chocolate, smiling with narrowed eyes just like before. As if giving a reward, he personally fed it to the young man. "Reply properly to messages, okay?" The young man answered in a low voice. After Seo Haeyeong took him out, she told the young man to wipe his tears dry. "I barely used any strength. Why are you crying?" The young man stood off to the side, not saying a single word. Seo Haeyeong now looked seemingly more satisfied. Looking at the young man in this state, that voice instantly yanked both of their gazes over. When Ju Hyeon-woo saw the young man's face beaten like that, he shouted on the spot, while beside him, Go Taegyeom was wearing a wicked grin. Seo Haeyeong told him that it was the young man who had made a mistake, so he had to be beaten. The matter had already been resolved. Ju Hyeon-woo shot back directly. "Are you crazy? You keep beating people up like this at the drop of a hat. Hurry up and fix that bad temper of yours." Faced with Ju Hyeon-woo's reproach, Seo Haeyeong didn't care at all and instead lazily leaned against the young man. "He already said he's fine. What are you so worked up about?" Looking at the young man's swollen cheek, Ju Hyeon-woo asked him if he wanted to put some medicine on it. The young man didn't answer and turned around to head for the kitchen. Just as Ju Hyeon-woo was about to chase after him, Seo Haeyeong behind him raised a hand and patted him, motioning for him to come over, as if he had something to say to him alone. Looking at the state of the kitchen, the young man felt his heart sink. He hadn't cooked for Seo Haeyeong for 2 weeks. Had Seo Haeyeong been eating properly during this time, he wouldn't have been going hungry all the time or just casually eating whatever to muddle through, right? He also felt like he'd been beaten up by Seo Haeyeong. Yet he was still worrying about Seo Haeyeong, which was ridiculous, but he didn't want to think about it any further, because the fault really was his. Seo Haeyeong had only given him a warning. It was fine. Looking at the ingredients, he was just thinking about what to make when Go Taegyeom came right up to him and immediately said he wanted to eat grilled eel. There was obviously no such thing in the house, yet the other man kept pestering him, rattling off a string of strange dish names. The young man was about to explode with anger, but he was no match at all. Lightly stroking the cheek that had been hit, Go Taegyeom lowered his voice and asked, "It hurts a lot, doesn't it? That guy Seo Haeyeong really hits hard. But you must have kind of enjoyed it, right? You just like going against him, don't you?" The young man started cursing, but he didn't dare raise his voice too much. He was afraid he'd draw the other two over, and he was also afraid the man in front of him would press further. Why didn't you take the belt away at the time? Go Taegyeom, however, told him, "That's what makes it fun." Holding the eel in his hand, he still didn't stop what he was doing. The young man had no choice and could only say, "I'm free tomorrow morning." Only then did Go Taegyeom let him go. Originally, he had wanted to keep playing the game here. Then tomorrow morning, let's play together again. After Go Taegyeom left, the young man's heartbeat still hadn't calmed down. At this moment, Go Taegyeom had long since grown impatient from waiting. The young man busied himself in the kitchen for quite a while. He finally managed to prepare a whole table full of dishes. Ju Hyeon-woo was practically drooling with hunger. It had been a long time since he'd eaten the young man's cooking. It felt like he was suddenly back in the past. During the meal, Seokyeon noticed that the young man kept picking up food and putting it into Seo Haeyeong's bowl. Seokyeon couldn't hold back and said, "Can you stop doing that? Seo Haeyeong isn't a child." The young man looked at Seo Haeyeong and realized he simply wouldn't pick up food for himself. Ju Hyeon-woo felt that this wasn't an issue of can't at all. Clearly, Seo Haeyeong was deliberately not picking up food, just waiting for the young man to feed him. Ju Hyeon-woo even said, "Letting Seo Haeyeong eat by himself isn't strange at all, but Seo Haeyeong just refuses to see it that way." Then Ju Hyeon-woo reminded him again, "Spare a thought for the young man too. Passing food back and forth like this is such a hassle." Seo Haeyeong looked at the young man and directly asked, "Is it a big hassle?" The young man froze for a second, then immediately said, "It's not a hassle." Seo Haeyeong instantly smiled and said, "See, he said it's not a hassle." Ju Hyeon-woo was speechless on the spot. At that moment, the young man suddenly felt something rubbing against him under the table. Across from him, Go Taegyeom had a wicked grin on his face. The foot under the table, however, was anything but honest. The young man couldn't very well expose him on the spot, so he could only pretend not to notice and let him go on. He thought of how back in high school, everyone used to eat together like this too. Back then, the whole room was full of laughter. He didn't know when the air had started to change flavor, when the atmosphere had become so subtle that people didn't even dare take a second look. After eating, he went to his part-time job at the bar. Fortunately, the injury on his face wasn't too obvious and didn't affect his work. Even with his feet barely touching the ground from how busy he was, he still had to squeeze in time to reply to Seo Haeyeong's messages. Just like that, a week flew by in the blink of an eye. Before getting off work, I even had a few drinks. Even though I work there, I can't shake the feeling that I'm being given charity. Yet deep down, I know very clearly, I'm really grateful to Ju Hyeon-woo. He put in effort for me to get this job. He had always been taking care of him. Back when the kid was a student and had no money to eat, he stuffed the kid's fridge full and even bought a whole bunch of fruit. Even though a lot of it ended up rotting before the kid could finish it, the kid was still very grateful. The kid thought to himself, "I need to find a time to treat him to a proper meal." Just as he reached his front door, he saw Go Taegyeom standing there, clearly having waited for a long time. He stubbed out his cigarette, impatience written all over his face. So slow. The kid suddenly felt exhausted. Why is it this guy again? The kid didn't want to deal with him at all. The kid said with a blank face, "Come in," but he himself stopped at the doorway, not wanting to move. Go Taegyeom walked up behind him and asked in a low voice, "Why aren't you going in?" The moment the kid stepped inside, Go Taegyeom hurried to speak, asking whether the kid wanted to take a shower before playing games, or just start right away. Since he couldn't avoid it, the kid didn't want to drag it out. It'd be the same sooner or later anyway, so they might as well start now. The kid did look really good in his uniform. He'd been quite happy when Seo Haeyeong complimented him earlier, but now that he heard praise from Go Taegyeom, all he felt was disgust. The kid glared at him, expressionless. With one glance, Go Taegyeom could tell The kid had been drinking. Otherwise, he normally wouldn't talk so sharply. "You know I'm not someone who keeps his mouth shut, right?" He lowered his voice. "So you'd better figure out a way to shut me up." The kid was threatened by him once again, but this time he was already numb and didn't feel a thing. Go Taegyeom continued, "If this game is a snowballing one, we can finish it early." But the kid no longer cared. Even if Seo Haeyeong found out, he probably wouldn't care either. During this duo queue, Go Taegyeom felt the kid wasn't putting his heart into it at all. So he directly asked, "Where are the donuts?" The kid raised his hand and pointed at the drawer. Go Taegyeom squatted down and stared at the kid, asking if he wanted to get beaten up while playing games. The light was already gone from the kid's eyes. He only found it ridiculous. Go Taegyeom raised his hand and patted the cheek that was already injured. "Funny, is it? Do you think I can't bring myself to hit you?" In fact, the kid knew very well that he would only enjoy hitting him more. The kid couldn't be bothered to answer such pointless questions. He just wanted it to end quickly. But the more he said that, the less the other man wanted to finish it so quickly. The man reached out and pushed the room door open, only to discover that inside, the Fate Symphony was being performed. The time Sokyeon spent together with Haewon had truly been very happy. That night, Ju Hyeon-woo was in a very good mood and walked in the direction of Haewon's house. He also took along the phone Haewon had left behind to return it, and he wanted to see Haewon's face once more. As greedy as that thought was, when Ju Hyeon-woo reached the door, he found that it wasn't locked. The very moment he pushed the door open. Inside, however, the Fate Symphony was being performed. Something he never could have imagined. He actually witnessed this scene with his own eyes. Right there in the corner of the room that was only 10 steps away, he saw Haewon's small, thin back. Haewon kept saying that he couldn't do it. Ju Hyeon-woo froze on the spot. His brain told him to leave immediately, but his legs wouldn't obey. They were nailed in place, and he couldn't move a single step. At that moment, a familiar voice came. The moment that frivolous tone came out, Ju Hyeon-woo felt it was all too familiar. It was Go Taegyeom. He saw Ju Hyeon-woo standing at the door, yet said nothing, and instead grew even more excited. Ju Hyeon-woo just stood there like that, blankly at the doorway. Then he remembered that day when Seo Haeyeong called him away alone. Seo Haeyeong asked him, "About 2 weeks ago, did you go to Haewon's house?" He thought about it carefully. It did seem like he had gone there once. He pressed Seo Haeyeong. "Why did you hit Haewon? Even if Haewon did something wrong, you didn't have to hit him that hard. We're all friends." But Seo Haeyeong said that wrong is wrong. Ju Hyeon-woo only thought he was completely crazy. No matter what happened, he shouldn't have laid a hand on him. Seo Haeyeong merely looked at him with a smile, then slowly shifted his gaze toward Go Taegyeom downstairs. At that moment, Go Taegyeom was walking toward the kitchen where Haewon was. Seo Haeyeong answers Ju Hyeon-woo about why he just hit Haewon, because only by hitting him will he listen. Ju Hyeon-woo feels he is already beyond saving and turns around to leave. But Seo Haeyeong stops him and asks, "How is Haewon?" At that time, Ju Hyeon-woo is completely baffled and does not understand this at all. Only the scene at this very moment finally makes Ju Hyeon-woo fully understand. After those crazy duo cues earlier and just having finished his part-time job, Haewon only feels aching in his waist and back, as if his whole body is about to fall apart. At this moment, he receives a message from Seo Haeyeong. "Come straight to my place after your part-time job." But it is clearly already very late. What is worse is that the bruises on his body have not faded yet, and a few days ago he duo queued with Go Taegyeom again. This kind of relationship has already been going on for more than a month, but that feeling is actually very pleasant. If he imagines his opponent as Seo Haeyeong, would it be even more exciting? The moment he thinks of this, he snaps back to himself, his heart sinking. "I really must be crazy. How could I have such a thought? I must not imagine Seo Haeyeong that way. Seo Haeyeong is clearly so cute." As soon as he steps through the door, he hears the sound of the television. Seo Haeyeong is sitting on the sofa, his gaze fixed on the TV. Haewon quietly moves closer, even lifting his hand, wanting to touch him. But Seo Haeyeong just tosses out a line, "Go wash up first." Still adding insult to injury, "The perfume on you smells awful." Haewon hurriedly explained that he had just gotten off his part-time job, and, afraid the smell of food on him was too strong, he sprayed on some perfume. He saw the clothes laid out in the bathroom. It was Seo Haeyeong's pajamas, and there were only 2 pieces. But it was impossible for him to put on what he had just been wearing again. When he went back to Seo Haeyeong's side, he found that Seo Haeyeong was actually watching a horror movie. At such a close distance, his heartbeat sounded like it was exploding right next to his ears. Plus the pajamas, which felt unbearably awkward on his body. Seo Haeyeong called out to him once, but he didn't respond, and the next second, Seo Haeyeong grabbed him by the hair. Gone deaf, Hyeyeong hurried to say that he had been scared by what was showing on the TV. Seo Haeyeong let out a chilly laugh and warned Hyeyeong, "Don't let there be a next time. Do you want a beating?" Finding the TV boring, he just turned it off. He asked Hyeyeong whether he had to go to work tomorrow. Hyeyeong normally went every day, but he felt like Seo Haeyeong had something going on, so he said he could take the day off tomorrow. It was so late and Seo Haeyeong still wasn't sleepy, so Hyeyeong thought he must have slept during the day. Seo Haeyeong said he couldn't sleep, and Hyeyeong said he wasn't sleepy either, and asked if he wanted to play games. Seo Haeyeong just stared quietly at Hyeyeong like that. The next second, he directly grabbed him and hauled him up. "Fine, then let's play a game." The loser runs away. In the end, he discovered that this kid had actually been secretly duo queuing with his good buddy behind his back. The crazy man had an episode right on the spot. Earlier, when Seo Haeyeong said he couldn't sleep, it was actually because he suggested playing hide and seek with Hyeyeong. The rules were very simple. The loser had to run away and could only hide inside the house. There were only 20 minutes. Before that, he absolutely could not be caught by Seo Haeyeong. Otherwise, the consequences would be very serious. Seo Haeyeong's house has 3 floors in total. His parents live on the first floor, the second floor is Seo Haeyeong's territory, and the third floor is his sister's territory. Seo Haeyeong's parents were professors, very busy with work and often not at home. So naturally, they also took much less care of him. And the older sisters became independent very early. So the third floor had been vacant for years, and Seo Haeyeong had never even set foot there, because even if an ornament inside was moved just a little, the sisters would question her about it, and they were not just saying that casually. In the past, Hyeyeong had even been pampered by Seo Haeyeong's second sister like a little puppy. She would play you throw, I fetch with Hyeyeong, and those memories almost filled every corner of Seo Haeyeong's house. Seeing that the 5-minute mark was about to arrive, Hyeyeong thought that as long as he beat Seo Haeyeong, he would ask him out to watch a movie together. He even started thinking about what kind of movie to choose and whether Seo Haeyeong would be free. He was seriously calculating even what they should eat after the movie. Just thinking about these things made Hyeyeong feel very happy. Suddenly, footsteps came from outside. Borrowing the light from the corridor, he then saw the shadow at the door. Seo Haeyeong had found this place. The next second, the door was pushed open. "Hyeyeong, are you here?" Hearing Seo Haeyeong call him, Hyeyeong still didn't make a sound, thinking to himself, "This is hide and seek. Calling out won't help you." Right after that, he saw Seo Haeyeong already walk in. Hyeyeong's heartbeat suddenly sped up. He absolutely couldn't be found. He still wanted to go watch a movie with Seo Haeyeong. Gradually, he couldn't even see Seo Haeyeong's feet anymore. The room grew tense and silent along with it. Hyeyeong glanced at the time. There were 13 minutes left. It looked like he was going to win. Suddenly, Seo Haeyeong's head poked in from the side of the bed. The smile on Hyeyeong's face froze in an instant, just as Seo Haeyeong reached out a hand to grab him. Hyeyeong immediately dodged and quickly crawled out from under the bed. Then he turned and ran, swiftly escaping from the room. In that split second when his eyes met Seo Haeyeong's, Hyeyeong understood. This wasn't an ordinary little pre-bedtime game at all. It was that as long as he was caught, he would be killed by him, that kind of look. He absolutely couldn't let himself be caught. But Hyeyeong thought about it and felt he hadn't done anything wrong lately. He had also replied earnestly to all of Seo Haeyeong's messages, so he really couldn't figure it out. Hyeyeong hid in the wardrobe, his mind racing. What should I do? He just needed to hold out a little longer. The next second, he heard Seo Haeyeong's voice again. "Are you in here?" There came sounds of rummaging from outside. Hyeyeong shrank back inside, not even daring to breathe loudly. After a while, he felt that Seo Haeyeong had already gone out. Only then did Hyeyeong slowly relax that taut string inside him. But just then, the wardrobe door was yanked open. Hyeyeong was caught red-handed on the spot. At this moment, Seo Haeyeong's whole demeanor was chillingly grim. Terrified, Hyeyeong spun around and tried to run. But how could Seo Haeyeong possibly let him go? He grabbed Hyeyeong by the hair and slammed him straight down onto the desk, like a hunter who had finally pinned down his prey. Hyeyeong still thought he was just fooling around. He pleaded in a low voice, "Gentler, Seo Haeyeong, a little gentler." But in the next second, the other was already closing in on him. Only then did Hyeyeong start to feel afraid. Game over. Seo Haeyeong took off his watch. "I told you if I caught you, you'd be done for." Hyeyeong had just started to sob when, the next second, Seo Haeyeong yanked his head and smashed it hard against the desk. The next second, he was yanked by the head and smashed hard against the desk by Seo Haeyeong. His whole body was shaking. He just wanted Seo Haeyeong to go to sleep. No more playing. He didn't want to play the game anymore. Seo Haeyeong didn't answer. Instead, he stared at Hyeyeong and asked, "I heard that lately you've been duo queuing in games with Go Taegyeom?" Upon hearing this, the psychotic Yandere realized the boy had actually been secretly duo-queuing with his good brother behind his back. He raised his hand and slapped him directly. When he was asked, "Is this true?" Hyeon's mind buzzed on the spot, and he couldn't even believe what Seo Haeyeong had just asked. How could he know? But now, no matter what, he had to open his mouth. Should he say no? He clearly wanted to deny it, but his throat felt stuck, and he couldn't force out a single word. In the end, he could only pretend to be joking and ask Seo Haeyeong to let him go first. In the struggle, the old photo of him and Seo Haeyeong was knocked to the floor as well, and the next second, a crisp sound of shattering rang out. Seo Haeyeong said, "I heard you've already used it." Hyeon's heart gave a violent tremor. Listening to Seo Haeyeong's words, Hyeon felt both wronged and furious. He cursed Go Taegyeom over and over in his heart, even viciously wishing, "I should have just killed him back then. If he had known earlier that guy would talk, how could he possibly have stayed with him all this time?" Hyeon was still denying it, and Seo Haeyeong couldn't even be bothered to keep tangling with him. Hyeon gritted his teeth and forced himself to say, "Go Taegyeom always talks weirdly. That guy is just spouting nonsense." At this moment, the photo on the floor had already shattered to pieces, as if reminding him, the cute Seo Haeyeong in his heart was never coming back. No matter what Hyeon said, Seo Haeyeong wouldn't listen. He only wanted one answer, the answer he wanted to know. Since Haewon refused to tell the truth, Seo Haeyeong no longer bothered to be polite. Frightened by the way he looked now, Haewon trembled all over and could only repeat that he didn't know anything. Seo Haeyeong let out a cold sneer. In that moment, Haewon also understood Seo Haeyeong was not joking. He could only beg Seo Haeyeong to calm down first and listen to what he had to say. Out of fear of Seo Haeyeong, Haewon kept pleading, tears already spilling from his eyes. But when Seo Haeyeong just stood there in front of him like that, Haewon knew that no matter what he said now, it was useless. Yet his miserable screams could not win even a shred of sympathy from Seo Haeyeong. Compared to this, Haewon would rather Seo Haeyeong just hit him directly. But Seo Haeyeong simply would not listen to his explanation. Even after everything was done, his gaze was still so cold it seemed to turn hard. Yet there was a dangerous smile hanging at the corner of his mouth. Haewon's eyes were full of tears, but Seo Haeyeong, on the contrary, was very pleased because he saw that the whipped cream ice cream he had made was actually stained with bright red strawberry syrup. By this time, Haewon had already passed out. Seo Haeyeong patted his cheeks, but there was still no response at all. How utterly disappointing. He raised his hand and, in the next second, brought it down in a vicious slap. Only then did the person finally show a reaction. Seo Haeyeong ordered him in an icy tone to snap out of it. Even when he heard Hyeon calling his name, Seo Haeyeong still remained indifferent. At this moment, the only thing Hyeon could feel was fear. He was clearly trembling non-stop, yet he kept apologizing to Seo Haeyeong. "I'm sorry, I was wrong. I'll keep in touch with you properly." Seo Haeyeong sneered. "Have you been keeping in touch with me properly? Have you?" Hyeon never imagined that coming to Seo Haeyeong's place tonight would turn into this. Seo Haeyeong was the person he had secretly liked for many years, and he used to be so cute. Watching Hyeon cry like that, Seo Haeyeong only asked one question. "Hyeon, you like me, don't you?" The crazy, unstable man heard that the kid had put a hat on him. He directly and forcefully insisted on duo-queuing with him. At this moment, Hyeon was trembling and crying at the same time. His tears wouldn't stop at all. What hurt wasn't just his body, but also his heart. In order not to let Seo Haeyeong see through his feelings, when Seo Haeyeong asked him, "Do you like me?" Hyeon could only bite the bullet and say, "I don't." Even he himself had never imagined that one day he would say such hurtful words right to Seo Haeyeong's face. After hearing this, Seo Haeyeong was stunned for a few seconds. The next second, he directly grabbed Hyeon's hand, his grip very tight, clearly not believing it. He kept pressing, "I always thought you liked me. Was I overthinking it?" Hyeon felt his heart clench, regret nearly suffocating him. He hadn't expected that after hiding his feelings for so long. Seo Haeyeong had actually sensed them all along. All he wanted in that moment was to confess right away. So when Seo Haeyeong pressed him again, he immediately told Seo Haeyeong the truth. He felt that, compared to Go Taegyeom, Seo Haeyeong would probably be more willing to believe him. He even thought, let's just pretend nothing happened today, and then they can still be like before. Seo Haeyeong really did look very happy. But at the moment he heard Seo Haeyeong had long known that he liked him, his whole body started to tremble. Even if he were to be hit the next second, he couldn't care less. Felt like he was confessing on the spot, and he said over and over, "Seo Haeyeong, I like you. I really like you. I've always liked you." After he finished, He used that trembling hand to slowly clasp Seo Haeyeong's hand in return. Confessing to the male god he had secretly loved for so many years, Hyeon still couldn't help blushing, feeling terribly embarrassed. But in the next second, Seo Haeyeong instead revealed a chilling smile. He asked Hyeon why he had duo-queued with Go Taegyeom. When you were duo-queuing, were you thinking of me? And at that time, you were even in my house. Hearing this, the little bit of shyness Haeyeon had just now was instantly snuffed out, replaced by a numbing panic. Faced with Seo Haeyeong's question, Haeyeon wanted Seo Haeyeong to calm down first and listen to his explanation, but Seo Haeyeong said he didn't care. 1 second earlier, he'd thought Go Taegyeom was lying. But today, Seo Haeyeong had basically confirmed it with his own eyes, and it felt fantastic. Today, Seo Haeyeong had basically confirmed it with his own eyes, and it felt fantastic. No matter how Haeyeon cried out, Seo Haeyeong had no intention of stopping. Only in this moment did Haeyeon realize that none of this was something he could control. Seo Haeyeong's voice kept coming from behind him, calling softly, "Haeyeon, you like me, right?" Haeyeon kept not answering. Seo Haeyeong got a little angry, and his force started to increase. Haeyeon could only squeeze out a single like, and only then was Seo Haeyeong satisfied. Haeyeon felt like he was about to collapse. Haeyeon's gaze started to go blank. In the next second, he directly passed out. Seo Haeyeong found it pretty disappointing, but no matter how he patted him, how he called him, Haeyeon still didn't wake up. But Seo Haeyeong couldn't care less. Their duo-queue match wasn't over yet. The feeling was just too strange, too marvelous. Seeing Seo Haeyeong's handsome sleeping face, Haeyeon's own face couldn't help but burn up. In Haeyeon's life before, Seo Haeyeong was everywhere. At school too, he was always hanging out with Seo Haeyeong and that crowd of his. When there was no food at home and he was starving, he would also run over to Seo Haeyeong's place to scrounge a meal. Even his grades were like that. They only went up because Seo Haeyeong found him a private tutor. Before that, there was someone who looked down on Haeyeon, and Haeyeon, furious, beat him up. Then when Seo Haeyeong found out, he went and beat that guy up again and even took the blame for Haeyeon in the end. Every time he wanted to hide from that abusive father, Haeyeon would squat at the mouth of an alley and contact Seo Haeyeong. And as soon as Seo Haeyeong got a call from Haeyeon, he would. Seo Haeyeong never asked much. He would just take Haeyeon straight to that big house of his and let him sleep there. But Haeyeon suddenly felt that it was like he had never relied on himself or truly accomplished anything on his own. He could only be friends with the people approved by Seo Haeyeong, and could only do the things permitted by Seo Haeyeong. Flipping through the pitifully few contacts in his phone, he finally realized at any time, in any place, the only person he could reach was Seo Haeyeong. By the time he became aware of this, it was already too late. In an environment like that, Haeyeon could only fall in love with him. Whatever the reason was, he was terribly afraid of a daily life without Seo Haeyeong. He even felt that Seo Haeyeong was his everything. The next day, sunlight slanted in through the window onto the bed. Hyeon reached out for his phone and lowered his head to check the time. There was still an hour and a half before work. But in the next second, he realized this wasn't his phone. It was Seo Haeyeong's. There was even a message from Go Taegyeom on the screen. Now, whenever he saw that guy, Hyeon would instantly get angry. That person was just a jerk. He turned his head and saw that Seo Haeyeong was still sound asleep. It was the Seo Haeyeong he had always liked. Just looking at him like this made his heart go soft and burning hot, as if it were filled to the brim with happiness. He remembered that yesterday he had already said, "I like you" to Seo Haeyeong, but as for what Seo Haeyeong really thought, he still didn't know. But after all, things had already gone that far. According to the normal order of a romance, wouldn't the next step be officially going out with him? But up to now, his whole body was sore all over. He was also very tired, but as soon as he thought that the other person was Seo Haeyeong, he felt that all of this was bearable. Maybe Seo Haeyeong's thoughts were the same as his own. Otherwise, last night wouldn't have happened like that. Hyeon told himself over and over, there's still hope. But based on what Hyeon knew about Seo Haeyeong absolutely was not the type of person who would say something like, "Let's date." If Seo Haeyeong were to say, "We've done everything we needed to do, now get lost," Haeyeon would really panic and have no idea what to do. Just imagining it makes him feel like he might burst into tears on the spot. At this moment, he only feels that his mind is a complete mess, like it's been stirred into mush. Clearly, he had wanted so much to be together with Seo Haeyeong before, but now that it has actually happened, he instead wants to pretend nothing ever occurred. He doesn't know what things will become in the future either, and he feels more and more uneasy. While he is mopping the floor in the bar, he suddenly hears his older sister call out to him. Seeing Haeyeon's face swollen like this, his sister immediately becomes nervous. Haeyeon still forces himself to say he just took a fall, but she sees through that in an instant. Seeing that he stubbornly refuses to talk no matter what, His sister doesn't press him further and only tells him to go back for today. Haewon, however, hurriedly says he can still work. Unable to win against his persistence, his sister can only agree to let him work 2 more hours, and even reminds him, if it's not done well, he'll have to redo it from the beginning. Haewon quickly says he's really grateful, but looking at him like this, anyone can tell that something must have happened. His sister hopes he can tell them, since Ju Hyeon-woo is here as well. Haewon still says it's nothing out loud, but in that moment, the only person in Haewon's mind is still Seo Haeyeong. In just a few days, it will be Seo Haeyeong's birthday. In the past, when it was Seo Haeyeong's birthday, he always just went to freeload food and drinks. But this time, he wants to seriously prepare a gift for Seo Haeyeong. It wasn't the kind you give to a friend, but the kind you give to a lover. Thinking of this, his face couldn't help but grow hot. So he asked his sister what kind of gift people usually give to their partners. When he asked that, his sister thought he had gotten a girlfriend. Haeyeon denied it at once, saying no, he just wanted to ask in advance. So his sister told Haeyeon that her friend had opened a jewelry accessories shop. If acquaintances went to buy something, they could even get a discount. Haeyeon stared at the price tag and saw that it was about the same as his monthly living expenses. Seo Haeyeong didn't usually wear accessories, but a bracelet should be okay. Yet if he did that, he would have to scrimp to the extreme for the next 2 months. The more he thought about it, the more conflicted he felt. How was he supposed to bring it up then? Should he just take this chance to confess directly? Maybe it might really work. Seeing that something was wrong with Haeyeon's complexion, his sister still told him to clock out early. Haeyeon wanted to tough it out, but the next second, he could barely stay standing. He had no idea why. He'd always been very healthy before and had never hurt like this. But today, the pain was especially obvious. After hesitating for a long time, he still set out on the road to Seo Haeyeong's home. When he reached the door, he pressed the doorbell with a trembling hand. The next second, he passed out. The dream of becoming lovers with Seo Haeyeong still ended up shattering. Hearing the doorbell, Seo Haeyeong opened the door and saw Haeyeon was actually lying on the ground. There wasn't much expression on Seo Haeyeong's face. It was chillingly cold. He walked over, hauled Haeyeon up, and tossed out a perfunctory greeting in passing. It was as if he was checking, is this person still conscious? Haeyeon was so weak that he could barely respond. In return, however, he received a scolding from Seo Haeyeong. I told you you'd feel sick the next day, so why did you still go out? After saying that, he pulled Haeyeon into the room, even pinning him down with a foot. Why are you running around? Why? Seo Haeyeong's voice dropped, every word like an interrogation. Haeyeon felt a grieved sting in his chest, but he didn't dare resist, and he really was feeling awful now. Even his vision started to blur, yet there was still not a trace of sympathy in Seo Haeyeong's eyes. Instead, he directly made his demand. Haeyeon had no choice but to agree. There was simply no other option. Then, Seo Haeyeong grabbed Haeyeon and threw him onto the sofa. He never expected Seo Haeyeong to be this rough. Seo Haeyeong handed the trophy to him. Haeyeon was stunned on the spot, completely unable to figure out why Seo Haeyeong wanted him to do this. Seo Haeyeong had no intention of explaining, only saying coldly, "Stop talking nonsense and do as I say." In that moment, Haeyeon's mind went completely blank. Could this be Seo Haeyeong's way? While Haeyeon was still hesitating, Seo Haeyeong lowered his voice and threatened him. Didn't you say you like me? Then be good and do as you're told. It'll be better. Or is it that you're asking for a beating? Only then did Haeyeon realize how ridiculous his earlier thoughts had been. He had actually thought that Seo Haeyeong, like him, wanted to date seriously. If he had known it would be like this, he shouldn't have said he liked him. Seo Haeyeong completely revealed that crazy, psychotic side of himself. Since you like me, then smile for me. Haeyeon let his tears fall as he forced himself to pull out a smile. Only then was Seo Haeyeong satisfied. He raised his hand and simply threw the trophy away. Now you're in a good mood, right, Haeyeon? Aren't you? Haeyeon still didn't understand. Was this really the kind of thing that Seo Haeyeong wanted? No matter what, this absolutely wasn't what Haeyeon wanted. The love he longed for was supposed to be gentle. Even just a simple kiss, a light touch would have been wonderful. Definitely not like this. After it was over, Seo Haeyeong cooked peach porridge for him. He sat happily across from Haeyeon, watching as Haeyeon drank it spoonful by spoonful. Haeyeon kept hesitating, not knowing what he should say to Seo Haeyeong. His hands began to tremble as well, and in the end, he only managed to call out softly. Seo Haeyeong then began to apologize to him. He hoped that Seo Haeyeong could act as if nothing had ever happened and go back to how they used to be. At the moment he said it out loud, Haeyeon's entire body was shaking. After hearing this, Seo Haeyeong's gaze turned as cold as ice. He lifted his hand to touch Haeyeon's ear, his tone terrifyingly calm. Act as if nothing ever happened? Hyeon hurriedly added, just like before, as friends. Seo Haeyeong frowned in confusion. Aren't we already friends now? As soon as these words fell, Hyeon was stunned on the spot. After being treated like that by him just now, is that something a friend would do? The moment Seo Haeyeong stood up, Hyeon was like a frightened bird, his body trembling uncontrollably. He heard Seo Haeyeong's footsteps coming closer and didn't even dare to lift his head. In the next second, Seo Haeyeong walked up to him and gently patted his head. Didn't you say you liked me? 3 years or 4? Anyway, you've liked me for a long time, right? Seo Haeyeong stared at him. Since that's the case, then whatever I do to you, you should like it, shouldn't you, Hyeon? Because we're friends, and we're very close. So you're very happy, right? As Seo Haeyeong said this, he suddenly pressed Hyeon's head down. Faced with Seo Haeyeong's barrage of questioning, Hyeon could only nod in silent response, because even like this, he still couldn't let go of Seo Haeyeong. He couldn't accept a world without Seo Haeyeong, so he could only tell himself over and over, just hold on a little longer. After finishing a day's work, Hyeon was so exhausted he could barely stand. But just then, that nauseating voice sounded from behind him again. The older sister sent him a text message asking, how is it going with picking out a gift on the website? Hyeon sent over the style he had chosen earlier, and also apologized for replying too late. The older sister said that when he was about to get off work, she would bring it over to him on her way. In the end, he still chose this bracelet, planning to give it to Seo Haeyeong. He had clearly already made up his mind earlier, but when it came time to really give it away, he started to feel unsure again. Would Seo Haeyeong like it? If Seo Haeyeong knew he was the one who bought it, would she accept it? He couldn't say for sure, and he was afraid all his effort would end up being for nothing. He was lost in thought when a voice suddenly sounded in his ear. It was Ju Hyeon-woo. Hyeon froze for a moment. Why would he come at this hour? It turned out a part-timer couldn't make it today at the last minute, so Ju Hyeon-woo came over to cover the shift. But Hyeon noticed that the whole time, Ju Hyeon-woo didn't dare turn his head to look at him. Hyeon thought he might not be feeling well. It happened while they were cleaning up the tables. By accident, Ju Hyeon-woo brushed against Hyeon's hand. Ju Hyeon-woo jerked his hand back immediately as if he had been shocked by electricity, his face flushing red in an instant. Hyeon stood next to him, staring at him with a face full of question marks. Hyeon asked if he had gotten heat stroke, and that only made Ju Hyeon-woo even more nervous. Hyeon didn't think much of it and just reminded Ju Hyeon-woo, don't think that just because you're here covering a shift, you can slack off. When Ju Hyeon-woo heard that, he only felt wronged inside, because Hyeon himself had no idea what he was panicking about. Ever since the last time he went to Hyeon's place and walked in on Hyeon and Go Taegyeom performing Symphony of Fate together, now whenever he so much as saw Hyeon, that scene would automatically surface in his mind, so beautiful it took his breath away. He also remembered how he later went to find Go Taegyeom and asked him whether he was dating Hyeon. After hearing him out, Go Taegyeom simply found Ju Hyeon-woo's question hilarious. Go Taegyeom told Ju Hyeon-woo that he and Hyeon were just duo queuing in games together. If Ju Hyeon-woo wanted to as well, he could just tell Hyeon directly. Hyeon would definitely be happy to. Every time he talked to Go Taegyeom, that guy always had this frivolous, unserious attitude. All the more certain did Ju Hyeon-woo become. He had to be dating Hyeon. He was just afraid of being gossiped about, so he dumped all the blame on Hyeon. If it were him instead, he would definitely protect Hyeon. This guy was really completely out of line. Looking at Hyeon's swollen cheek, Ju Hyeon-woo frowned and asked, how did this even happen? Hyeon replied airily, I fell. But Ju Hyeon-woo didn't believe it at all and guessed within a second. It was Seo Haeyeong who had hit him, and Hyeon didn't deny it either. Ju Hyeon-woo could only sigh. He just couldn't figure it out. What exactly had Hyeon done wrong for Seo Haeyeong to be this ruthless? Could it be that their relationship with Go Taegyeom had been found out? What was even stranger wasn't Go Taegyeom Hyeon's boyfriend? Why wasn't he stepping in? Just then, Hyeon heard Ju Hyeon-woo mention Go Taegyeom. He immediately turned around, stared at Ju Hyeon-woo, and asked, you suddenly bring up Go Taegyeom. What's going on? Ju Hyeon-woo said it was nothing, just that they were going out to have fun together tomorrow, and they would be riding in Go Taegyeom's car. The topic naturally shifted, and they went back to talking about the past. Back then, the few of them all went by bus. They had even bought a whole bunch of heavy meat. The way Ju Hyeon-woo described it was especially vivid, and Hyeon also remembered along with him. Smiling as he picked up the conversation, the mood instantly relaxed. Ju Hyeon-woo suddenly asked, those photos, they should still be at the villa, right? Logically speaking, they should all be there. Every summer, the 4 of them would go to the villa and take a group photo, one each year, so by now there should be 4 of them. But Hyeon's relationship with these 3 people, 2 of them, had already become very strained. With one of them, it was basically completely over. With the other, it wasn't over yet. He even felt there was still hope. Looking at Ju Hyeon-woo, who had never changed, Hyeon suddenly felt maybe by relying on this person, he could pull back a little of that relationship that was about to snap. As it was getting close to the end of the workday, his sister really brought the gift Hyeon had ordered and even told him, "Everything's ready. You just need to hand it over." At a glance, Ju Hyeon-woo recognized that this accessory was that super hard to reserve style, and he almost blurted it out. But the next second his sister covered his mouth. Shut up, because the holiday would start tomorrow and they wouldn't be back to work until a week later. His sister suggested that everyone have a meal together. At this moment, Ju Hyeon-woo went to find Hyeon, who was still busy. He was afraid his sister would see Hyeon's injured face and start nagging again. So he told Hyeon to head back first, and right now was the best time to slip away quietly. Hyeon had originally wanted to at least say goodbye to his sister before leaving, but Ju Hyeon-woo said there was no need and directly pushed him toward the exit. He was smiling happily, and just like that, watched Hyeon get off work. Hyeon looked back at Ju Hyeon-woo, and for no clear reason his heart loosened a little. This person could always put him at ease. On the way back, Hyeon thought about going out for a bit during the holiday, but simply giving this bracelet to Seo Haeyeong might not really change anything. However, Seo Haeyeong had given him so many benefits before, so this time he would just treat it as returning a favor, and that was fine too. All of a sudden, a familiar voice, one that also made him nauseous, sounded from behind. Hyeon slowly turned around. Go Taegyeom was sitting there with the car door open, looking all roguish, his eyes locked tightly on him. Hyeon's gaze suddenly became flustered. Hearing that Go Taegyeom had come for the same purpose again, Hyeon bit his lip in anger. He turned around and left, forcing his anger down. The next second, Go Taegyeom quickly caught up and grabbed him in a vice-like grip. The difference in strength was too great. No matter how Hyeon struggled, he was still forcibly dragged into the car. Go Taegyeom could tell at a glance that something was off about Hyeon. He looked like he was unwell, touched his forehead. The moment his palm pressed against it, he knew it was still burning with fever. At that moment, Hyeon swung a fist straight at Go Taegyeom, but Go Taegyeom dodged it easily. Furious, Hyeon started cursing. "Why did you have to say it? You clearly promised you wouldn't." Go Taegyeom let out a low laugh, thinking Hyeon was still too naive. He had already said before that he couldn't keep his mouth shut. Even though there were 4 people in the car, Seo Haeyeong still wanted to pull Hyeon in to play a game. After getting ready in the morning, Hyeon went to wait for them at the entrance of the alley. At that time, his complexion was awful, and he looked completely haggard. The car pulled up just then. Ju Hyeon-woo greeted Hyeon with a smile. The moment he saw how listless Hyeon looked, he flared up at once. "Yesterday I specifically told you to get off work early so you could go home and sleep. And this is how you show up now? We already bought all the groceries." Hyeon felt even more awkward and could only say, "Once we get there, I'll handle the luggage." Hyeon walked to the back seat and was just about to open the door when he saw the person inside, and his face instantly flushed bright red. He took a deep breath and forced himself to get in the car, yet he still awkwardly greeted Seo Haeyeong inside the car. Seo Haeyeong was leaning sideways against the car window, giving him a faint smile, that excessively handsome face suddenly sweeping into his field of vision. Hyeon immediately looked away, not daring to look any longer. Ju Hyeon-woo said that when they were buying groceries, they had no idea what they were supposed to buy. Hyeon asked them what exactly they had bought. Ju Hyeon-woo said they had just grabbed things at random. Hyeon said it was fine, since the villa already had everything it needed anyway. Then Ju Hyeon-woo started talking about what had happened in the supermarket again. Those two were like elementary school kids, constantly stuffing snacks into the shopping cart and wouldn't listen no matter what he said. As soon as Go Taegyeom heard that, he got annoyed and immediately retorted, "I even put ice cream in there." The moment he heard the word ice cream, Hyeon's whole body stiffened. Hyeon immediately turned his head away, but Go Taegyeom hooked up a dangerous smile. Just a moment ago he had been fighting with Ju Hyeon-woo, refusing to let him touch his snacks, yet now he was willing to share them with Hyeon. Hearing Go Taegyeom say that, Hyeon suddenly didn't know whether he should feel flattered or not. If one had to describe his relationship with Go Taegyeom, the only phrase would be "cannot put into words." Even when he saw Hyeon crying last night, Go Taegyeom didn't care at all. Hyeon had quietly begged him, because they were going out to have fun the next day, and had even told him about what happened before with Seo Haeyeong. He thought that this way Go Taegyeom would stop. But after listening, Go Taegyeom instead asked Hyeon in return, "Are you happy? You finally got the Seo Haeyeong you've always been thinking about." Shouldn't you be very happy? Unexpectedly, Go Taegyeom still didn't stop. On the contrary, he became even more impatient. In his eyes, whatever Haewon and Seo Haeyeong had done, he simply didn't care. Hearing this, Haewon was completely dumbfounded. He had clearly agreed to be with him before only so that Go Taegyeom would keep the secret. Now that Seo Haeyeong already knew, didn't that mean Haewon no longer had any reason to be with Go Taegyeom? Then what does this count as now? The more he thought about it, the more confused he became, and only suddenly did he snap back to his senses. At that moment, Seo Haeyeong suddenly collapsed onto his thighs. In the front seats, Go Taegyeom and Ju Hyeon-woo were still laughing and chatting. Haewon glanced at them in a panic, afraid of being found out. But Seo Haeyeong was not the least bit well-behaved, and Haewon sat there with his whole body trembling. He hurriedly looked toward Ju Hyeon-woo in the front again. Go Taegyeom looked into the rearview mirror and revealed an ambiguous smile. After getting Haewon's affirmative answer, only then did Seo Haeyeong let him go. Then, as if nothing had happened, he continued to lean sideways against the car window. Thinking about the upcoming villa trip, Seo Haeyeong was especially looking forward to it, because he knew Hyeon would definitely behave obediently. Seeing Seo Haeyeong greet him with a smile, Hyeon's heart once again spun out of control. On the day of departure, the weather was very nice. A few of them sat in Go Taegyeom's car and quickly arrived at the villa they visited every year. It was still that same familiar feeling, and still the same four of them. As soon as he got out of the car, Hyeon took the initiative to take over the unloading work. Go Taegyeom and Seo Haeyeong just stood quietly by watching. Hearing what Ju Hyeon-woo said just now, he had thought they hadn't taken shopping seriously at all. But only when he started sorting things did he realize everything was actually quite complete. They had just bought a bit too much meat, which was perfect for making hangover soup tomorrow. At that moment, he came across another bag of unknown stuff. The instant he opened the bag, Hyeon's whole body froze. Why did they buy so many donuts? Could it be that they were all bought by Go Taegyeom? Suddenly, from behind, Ju Hyeon-woo urged Hyeon to hurry up. Startled, Hyeon immediately grabbed the bag, afraid that Ju Hyeon-woo would see it. Ju Hyeon-woo had originally wanted to come over and help Hyeon sort things, but Hyeon rejected him outright. Just then, outside, Go Taegyeom urged him again to go get the beer, so he had no choice but to leave Hyeon here alone. After Ju Hyeon-woo left, Hyeon immediately stuffed the bag of donuts into the drawer to hide it. In his heart, he cursed Go Taegyeom viciously. If Ju Hyeon-woo discovered it, or if Seo Haeyeong discovered it, what was he supposed to do then? When he was changing clothes, he saw his body covered in marks in the mirror, and Hyeon froze on the spot. In an instant, he felt a surge of anger. It was all that bastard Go Taegyeom's fault. He had no choice but to just go out wearing a t-shirt like that. At a glance, he saw Seo Haeyeong swimming in the pool, and Ju Hyeon-woo and Go Taegyeom chatting on the side. Seo Haeyeong greeted Hyeon with a smile. Seeing him up close and this handsome, Haewon's cheeks gradually grew hot, but he still forced himself to reply. Go Taegyeom joked about Ju Hyeon-woo's floral swim trunks, only to be roasted back even harder. Since he couldn't win with words, Go Taegyeom simply stood up and directly pushed him into the water. A huge splash of water burst up and splattered over towards Seo Haeyeong. Watching them fool around like this, Hyeon suddenly felt as if he had gone back to the past. Just then Seo Haeyeong waved at him, telling him to come down and play together. Seeing Seo Haeyeong like this, Hyeon blushed again despite himself. Flustered, he stole a glance at the two people beside him, and as soon as they heard that Hyeon couldn't swim, Seo Haeyeong curled up the corners of his lips, and the next second he directly yanked him into the water. Hyeon panicked on the spot to the point of losing control. But in the water, he could still see Seo Haeyeong's smiling face. Go Taegyeom fooled around with Ju Hyeon-woo for a long time and still lost. And then Ju Hyeon-woo said he was hungry. He called out to Hyeon, and as soon as he saw Hyeon in such a wretched state, Ju Hyeon-woo immediately walked over and asked what they were doing. And Seo Haeyeong only said, "Playing." After speaking, Seo Haeyeong stood up directly and left the pool. Hyeon just stared at his departing back like that, not moving at all. After coming ashore, Ju Hyeon-woo told Hyeon that they had bought a lot of meat and asked him to come eat with them. He noticed that Haewon's clothes were soaked through, and that he was still wearing them. So he reached out his hand and said he would help him take them off. The instant the clothes were lifted, Hyeon completely panicked. Ju Hyeon-woo also froze on the spot. Hyeon immediately pulled his hand away. Then he walked forward without looking back. In his heart, he kept comforting himself over and over. As long as Ju Hyeon-woo doesn't know where these marks came from, it's fine. Ju Hyeon-woo stood there in a daze, neither going closer nor asking questions. Seo Haeyeong naturally brought Haewon a towel and helped dry his hair. Looking at such a gentle Seo Haeyeong, Haewon felt dazed, as if he were dreaming. Suddenly, Seo Haeyeong handed something over. It was gummy worms. Haewon's expression instantly froze. Seo Haeyeong burst out laughing at him on the spot. Liking Seo Haeyeong is still very hard even now. Haewon had long since known this. Clearly, Seo Haeyeong in the daytime is still so gentle and so easy to approach. But as soon as night comes, he seems like a different person. When he was sorting ingredients and getting the meat ready for grilling with Go Taegyeom, the more Ju Hyeon-woo looked, the more uncomfortable he felt. Because whenever he saw Go Taegyeom, he would think of the relationship between Go Taegyeom and Haewon. And judging from the marks on Haewon's body just now, they looked like they were left yesterday. The more Ju Hyeon-woo thought about it, the more outrageous it became. He started replaying in his head that symphony of fate he had witnessed at Haewon's place, and he was on the verge of losing it. Seeing the way he looked, Go Taegyeom at his side thought he must have bought the wrong meat. Later, when Haewon and Seo Haeyeong came over, they were also completely baffled. Seo Haeyeong wrapped the grilled meat in a leaf of Napa cabbage, then very thoughtfully fed it to Haewon beside him. Watching the two of them chatting and laughing, Ju Hyeon-woo was so embarrassed he could hardly breathe. In order not to ruin the mood, he decided to join them. He immediately wrapped a piece of meat and called out to Haewon. The moment Haewon turned his head, Ju Hyeon-woo directly shoved the meat into his mouth, insisting that he taste the grilled wrap he had made. Then, suppressing his anticipation, he stared at Haewon and asked, "How is it tasty?" Haewon quickly realized Ju Hyeon-woo was pretending not to see those marks, helping him hide his embarrassment. In that instant, the kindness score of Ju Hyeon-woo in Haewon's heart ticked up another notch. Haewon deliberately reminded him in a joking tone, "Swallow what's in your mouth first before you talk." The moment he said this, the tips of Ju Hyeon-woo's ears all the way to his cheeks flushed a ridiculous shade of red. Standing beside them grilling the meat, Go Taegyeom listened to their banter and suddenly felt his temper flare. "I'm over here working hard flipping meat, and you two are just chatting away?" As soon as he finished complaining, Haewon, right in front of him, swallowed a mouthful of meat in one go. He even followed it up with a scornful "what can you do about it" expression. Go Taegyeom was so furious at that look that he lifted his foot, ready to march over and deal with Haewon, when Ju Hyeon-woo hurriedly shoved the wrapped meat into his hand. The message was obvious: eat first and cool down. So the mood at the table remained perfectly stable. But as soon as the meal was over, Go Taegyeom really had no intention of letting Haewon off the hook. There was a loud splash, and Haewon was thrown straight into the swimming pool by him. It seemed Go Taegyeom really holds a grudge. Seo Haeyeong saw this scene and couldn't hold back, bursting into laughter. Listening to their laughter, Haewon suddenly felt a little dazed, as if he had gone back to the past. Back to those days when he hadn't fallen for Seo Haeyeong yet and hadn't gotten involved in anything with Go Taegyeom. In that moment, he also relaxed and laughed along with them. But when night came, Ju Hyeon-woo downstairs was already fast asleep. Yet Seo Haeyeong upstairs insisted on dragging Haewon to stay up late and duokyu. Haewon was almost scared into a heart attack. Clearly, Seo Haeyeong had been so gentle during the day. He had already let him off once in the car during the day. But this time Seo Haeyeong had no intention of going easy. Poor Haewon could only sit there quietly and endure it. He coaxed himself like he used to. Just grit your teeth and it'll be over. But Seo Haeyeong really didn't know how to hold back. At this moment, Go Taegyeom's voice suddenly came. They saw him pour all the donuts out of the bag in front of Haewon. Haewon had originally thought that as long as he didn't say it, no one would ever find out about him liking Seo Haeyeong. But the next second, donuts came falling down from above his head. Haewon was so startled on the spot that he trembled. Go Taegyeom walked up to stand in front of Haewon. He had already said in the daytime he would not let Haewon off. Haewon was shaking with fear, looking at Seo Haeyeong with terrified eyes. He couldn't understand why things had turned out like this. Seo Haeyeong didn't explain. He only gave Haewon a cold glance. Listening to their conversation, Haewon only felt like he was stuck between two demons. Go Taegyeom was beside himself with excitement. The donuts Haewon had hidden were found by Seo Haeyeong in an instant. Haewon simply didn't dare believe it. He thought he was hallucinating from drinking too much or dreaming, but this dream was way too awful. Haewon pleaded in a low voice. Seo Haeyeong didn't react at all. Instead, he pulled out a chilling smile. Right after that, Haewon saw a hand flying toward him in a slap. Go Taegyeom, who was standing nearby, saw this scene and his face was full of confusion. Haewon's cheek was red and swollen, and his face was immediately covered in tears. But Seo Haeyeong seemed to have completely lost control. showing not the slightest bit of mercy toward Haewon. The more miserably Haewon cried, the more Go Taegyeom enjoyed mocking him. No matter how Haewon begged, Go Taegyeom had no intention of letting him off, and even directly told him the donuts were bought by Seo Haeyeong. Haewon's eyes flew wide open. He simply couldn't believe it. Looking at that shocked expression on Haewon's face, Go Taegyeom wore a wicked grin, and it was obvious. Haewon had always thought those donuts were bought by Go Taegyeom. Shaking with sobs, Haewon kept apologizing while telling Seo Haeyeong everything about how he'd been threatened by Go Taegyeom before. But in the very next second, Go Taegyeom suddenly cut in and coldly denied it. He had never said anything like that. It was Seo Haeyeong who had misunderstood on his own. Hearing this, Seo Haeyeong felt as if his throat were being strangled, his whole being plunging into bottomless despair. Go Taegyeom was standing right in front of him, as if watching a joke, mocking him one line after another. The secret slipped out of your own mouth. How do you still have the nerve to blame someone else? Seo Haeyeong's tears crashed down, filled with regret, and he kept begging Seo Haeyeong for mercy. He couldn't make sense of it. Could it be that the fact he liked Seo Haeyeong was really that obvious? He had originally thought that as long as Go Taegyeom was willing to keep his secret, no one else would find out, and that was why he bowed his head and submitted. Yet only now did he realize, whether it was to Go Taegyeom or to Seo Haeyeong, this had long since stopped being a secret. Seeing Seo Haeyeong turn and run, Go Taegyeom immediately called him back to apologize to Seo Haeyeong, because he knew Seo Haeyeong's temper all too well. If Seo Haeyeong didn't come to apologize, there would be no good outcome waiting for him. But Seo Haeyeong hid in his room and stubbornly refused to come out. By then, Seo Haeyeong was already walking toward the room. Go Taegyeom could only sigh helplessly. What would happen next was so obvious he didn't even need to think about it. It wasn't long before Hyeon was yanked out by the hair by Seo Haeyeong and forcibly dragged out. In the next second, he was slammed hard onto the ground again. Seo Haeyeong's fists and kicks rained down. Hyeon didn't dare, and simply couldn't, fight back. Go Taegyeom stood to the side watching without stepping in, just unable to figure it out. Why was Seo Haeyeong beating Hyeon? Seo Haeyeong's explanation was very simple. Hyeon was disobedient, so you beat him until he obeys. This is how it had always been. Lowering his eyes to look at Hyeon, Seo Haeyeong asked that same question again. Hyeon was very obedient and answered truthfully. Seo Haeyeong couldn't understand. Since he already knew the reason, why did he still have to do this? At that moment, Hyeon remembered only one thing: apologize to Seo Haeyeong first. And as it turned out, this really worked. Seo Haeyeong finally stopped hitting him. He tossed out a cold line. I'll let you off for today. If there's a next time, I really won't be polite. After that, he told Go Taegyeom to bring something sweet over, leaving Go Taegyeom standing there with a face full of question marks. Seo Haeyeong took the chocolate and fed it straight into Hyeon's mouth. The corners of his lips curled up in satisfaction, and he signaled for Hyeon to continue what he hadn't finished. After this whole sequence of actions from Seo Haeyeong, Go Taegyeom was completely dumbfounded, hardly able to believe what he was seeing. But Haewon still didn't give Go Taegyeom any response. The more Go Taegyeom thought about it, the angrier he got, and his face completely darkened. The next day, just as the sun was starting to rise, Ju Hyeon-woo had already gotten up. They had clearly said they were here on vacation, yet this group of people was still sleeping in. He went to look for Go Taegyeom first. Without another word, he just plopped himself down on the bed. Go Taegyeom nearly had his waist broken from being sat on and sucked in a sharp breath of pain. Being woken up so roughly would piss anyone off. But Ju Hyeon-woo didn't care and turned to wake the others. As soon as the door opened, Ju Hyeon-woo's face showed an expression of envy so strong it almost turned sour. Sure enough, this was still the best room. At a glance, he saw that someone was still curled up under the blanket. Something clicked in Ju Hyeon-woo's mind. He raised his hand and yanked the blanket up in one go, and the person underneath turned out to be Haewon. Haewon's body was covered in marks, all especially obvious. They looked like they'd just been left not long ago. Ju Hyeon-woo immediately drew a conclusion. Last night, he had definitely gone behind everyone's back to secretly duo Q and play games with Go Taegyeom. Just then, Seo Haeyeong's voice suddenly came from behind, and Ju Hyeon-woo jolted in fright. Ju Hyeon-woo was unbearably embarrassed, hurriedly pulled Haewon's blanket back over him, then turned his head and complained to Seo Haeyeong. The other rooms clearly have bathrooms. Why did you have to come here to wash up? Seo Haeyeong, however, spoke as if it were only natural. I'm sleeping here, of course I'll wash up here. Ju Hyeon-woo completely could not believe it, his face clearly saying, "What are you talking about?" Seeing the look on his face, Seo Haeyeong decided to prove it with his actions. He stepped forward and pulled Haewon into his arms. Watching this scene, Ju Hyeon-woo was so shocked he could barely form words. He immediately turned around and hurried out of the room. But his mind wouldn't stop. The more he thought about it, the more absurd it seemed, and he still couldn't bring himself to believe it. He stubbornly felt it was impossible, desperately forcing himself not to overthink it. There was absolutely no way the three of them had been playing together in the third row. Just then, he saw that Hae-won was already awake. Seo Haeyeong asked him quietly, "Did you sleep well?" Hearing Seo Haeyeong's voice, Hae-won's eyes flew wide open. He immediately turned his back, not wanting to acknowledge him. But Seo Haeyeong stayed at his side, pestering him like teasing a child. He asked Hae-won, "Do you still like me now?" Yet Hae-won kept his head down, continuing to pretend he hadn't heard. Seo Haeyeong suddenly grabbed a handful of his hair. He forcibly turned him around, a smile still on his lips as he stared straight at Hae-won. Hae-won just found it very strange. Every time Seo Haeyeong smiled, his heart would start pounding wildly, as if something indescribable were crashing around inside it. But this time was different. His heartbeat sped up and slowed down erratically, a chill crept down his spine, and there was even a reaction like stress response. This kind of emotion was something he had experienced in others a long time ago. For example, his father kicking open the bathroom door. For example, the boss who didn't pay his wages yet still swung his fist at him. That sudden grabbing of his collar, those wolf-like eyes. And what he was feeling now from Seo Haeyeong was almost exactly the same kind of oppressive pressure those people had brought him. Sitting alone under the sun umbrella, Hae-won couldn't help but think, what would things be like if there were no Seo Haeyeong? In that case, he wouldn't have met Go Taegyeom and Ju Hyeon-woo. Ju Hyeon-woo wouldn't have helped him fill up his fridge time and time again, and Go Taegyeom wouldn't have given him money for a trip when he took a leave from school. He wouldn't have met Ju Hyeon-jong either, and there wouldn't have been anyone to encourage him to talk about those difficulties, almost as if he had never known them at all. Then it was very likely he wouldn't even have been able to scrape together the money for his father's funeral. His rent would have been delayed again and again until he was kicked out, and he might not even have been able to pay the compensation. All of this revolved around money. The more he thought about it, the more wretched and shabby he felt. And apart from those few people, he didn't even have a single friend now. At this moment, Go Taegyeom walked over, a note of doubt in his voice as he asked what Hae-won was doing. Hae-won had absolutely no intention of paying attention to him. After what happened yesterday, Go Taegyeom could still talk to him like nothing had happened. Hae-won really doubted whether this person even had a conscience. Even if Go Taegyeom was showing concern for him right now, asking whether he was feeling any better, Hae-won still ignored him. Right now, he just wanted to stay alone in peace. Go Taegyeom simply stood next to him, staring at him the whole time, and Hae-won noticed it too. The moment he turned his head, Go Taegyeom leaned in and kissed him. There was no expression at all on Hae-won's face, and Go Taegyeom froze on the spot. Hae-won snatched the water bottle from Go Taegyeom's hand, took a swig immediately to rinse his mouth, then spat it out right in front of Go Taegyeom. That was naked, undisguised provocation. Rage flared up in an instant in Go Taegyeom, and he turned around and walked away in anger. Hae-won was also extremely fed up with the tangled mess he was in right now, and whenever he saw the two of them, that irritation only grew worse. In order to make Ju Hyeon-woo understand what was really going on, Go Taegyeom simply had him stand to the side and watch everything clearly. At this moment, Hae-won just wanted to be by himself, somewhere quiet. He walked slowly along the shoreline, wanting to shake all of this off. The sound of the waves rushing in and retreating beat against his ears over and over again. By the time he thought about turning back, he could no longer see the parasols behind him, nor could he see Seo Haeyeong. He casually ordered a drink and sat there quietly, not knowing how much time had passed, until he felt it was time to go back. But as long as he saw those two people, Hae-won would remember what happened yesterday. No matter how much he forced himself, he really couldn't hold on anymore and really didn't want to go back. He even wanted to pretend that time didn't exist. As long as he didn't go back, it would be fine. But he also knew very well that this was impossible. More or less, he still had to go back. Just then, Seo Haeyeong hurriedly found Hae-won. Seeing him like this, Hae-won's face was full of question marks. Only after Seo Haeyeong confirmed that Hae-won was sitting here did he finally let out a sigh of relief. Then he turned around and walked to the back. Hae-won was even more confused. He just left like that? The next second, Seo Haeyeong's complaining voice suddenly came from behind. It startled Hae-won so much that he jolted. Hae-won walked off without a word, and Seo Haeyeong was furious, directly asking him where his phone was. Hae-won didn't answer. Seo Haeyeong's gaze instantly turned cold. He slapped his own phone down in front of Hae-won. Pointing at the call log, he asked Hae-won why he didn't answer. After so many calls, he hadn't picked up even once. But Hae-won was staring at the little heart after the remark name, the one that had followed the name for more than 10 years. The one that had followed the name for more than 10 years. When Hyeon first discovered that heart, he panicked and told Seo Haeyeong to delete it. In the end, Seo Haeyeong instead added 3 more, and the two of them finally deadlocked until only 1 heart was left, which counted as reaching an agreement. After a while, Hyeon then told Seo Haeyeong that he hadn't brought his phone. Looking back now, that heart might not have meant anything to Seo Haeyeong at all. The fact that he'd made a fuss with him over it before was really too childish. After that, he just followed along and went back with Seo Haeyeong. Hyeon walked behind, staring fixedly at Seo Haeyeong's back. All of a sudden, he felt that Seo Haeyeong was far too distant from him. Clearly hadn't been like this before. Suddenly, Seo Haeyeong stepped forward, put an arm around his shoulder, and asked if it had hurt a lot yesterday. Hyeon nodded. So it was because of this that Seo Haeyeong had come all this way alone. Seo Haeyeong said he'd really been scared by Hyeon. In fact, Hyeon hadn't really been beaten much yesterday. Looking at the Seo Haeyeong in front of him, although he was a bit worried that Seo Haeyeong might make a move here, he still decided to make things clear. So Hyeon told Seo Haeyeong not to touch him like that. But after hearing this, Seo Haeyeong still didn't take his hand off Hyeon's shoulder. Seo Haeyeong's face flushed slightly. Seo Haeyeong, as if teasing him, kept taking his hand away and then putting it back again and again. Suddenly, he snapped his fingers. Seo Haeyeong leaned close to Hyeon's ear and whispered, "It was clearly you, Hyeon, who first duo-queued with Go Taegyeom. You even said you liked me. How can you be like this now?" Hyeon had a lot he wanted to argue, but in this moment, he couldn't say a single word. In Seo Haeyeong's view, he was helping Hyeon, yet not only was Hyeon ungrateful, he was even showing this kind of attitude. After hesitating for a few seconds, Hyeon still told Seo Haeyeong, "I already said it yesterday, I don't like you." Seo Haeyeong felt that Hyeon was lying, so Seo Haeyeong asked him directly, "Do you like me or not?" At this moment, Hyeon could clearly feel that terrifying sense of pressure from Seo Haeyeong. If he said, "I don't like you now," he might be done for on the spot, so he could only nod in silence. Having gotten the answer he wanted, Seo Haeyeong immediately smiled, obviously very happy. He also wanted Hyeon to take responsibility for what he had said to him, and he warned him coldly, "If you dare run off again without a word in the future, he will absolutely not let it slide." Back at the villa, Ju Hyeon-woo was still incessantly scolding Go Taegyeom. He said he had no objections to Haewon dating, but if Seo Haeyeong raised a hand against Haewon, then no matter what he should have stepped in. Seeing Go Taegyeom act like it was none of his business made him blow up on the spot. Ju Hyeon-woo was stunned. Hadn't he seen what Haewon's face looked like? Wasn't it because he liked him that he went out with Haewon? At that moment, Go Taegyeom recalled how, back on the beach earlier, Haewon had treated him, and the more he thought about it, the more upset he felt, so he simply said straight to Ju Hyeon-woo, "If you also want to duo queue in games with Haewon, just say it." Ju Hyeon-woo thought he was out of his mind, and then Go Taegyeom immediately brought up how Ju Hyeon-woo had always been running over to Haewon's place before. Ju Hyeon-woo explained that it was because Haewon never ate properly, and he was only going there to help restock Haewon's fridge. But Go Taegyeom didn't believe it at all and felt there was no way it was that simple. Since Ju Hyeon-woo did in fact also have the thought of wanting to duo queue with Haewon, when he heard what Go Taegyeom said, he fell silent for a few seconds, then argued back. He just saw Haewon as a very close friend. That's why he wanted to help him. Seeing that Ju Hyeon-woo kept insisting he was dating Haewon, Go Taegyeom finally couldn't sit still anymore. He yanked Ju Hyeon-woo to his feet and went straight to find Haewon. Hyeon jolted when he heard Go Taegyeom suddenly shout his name, thinking something had gone wrong. When he turned around, he saw the two of them grappling, and Ju Hyeon-woo shouted to Hyeon, "Get out now." Hyeon also instantly realized something was wrong. He immediately stood up and turned to run out. But the next second, he was yanked back by Go Taegyeom. Then he was directly thrown back. It was as if Go Taegyeom was deliberately trying to prove something to Ju Hyeon-woo, and Ju Hyeon-woo was shaking with anger. "You're really insane." At that moment, Seo Haeyeong came out, having just finished his shower. Ju Hyeon-woo immediately told him, "Hurry up and take Hyeon out of here." Hyeon looked to Seo Haeyeong for help with eyes that were on the verge of tears. But Seo Haeyeong was unusually calm. He grabbed Ju Hyeon-woo's wrist and pulled him over, pinning him to the side. In that moment, what Hyeon felt was not only shock, but also a crushing despair and helplessness on his chest. Under the restraint of Seo Haeyeong and Go Taegyeom, Ju Hyeon-woo was still forced to take that step. Hyeon was shaking with rage and grabbed Go Taegyeom in one motion and growled at him in a low voice, "Ju Hyeon-woo is still right here." But Go Taegyeom didn't care at all. And in fact, Ju Hyeon-woo was someone he had deliberately called over. After being scolded by Haewon, Go Taegyeom's face instantly darkened. He simply said to Haewon, Ju Hyeon-woo also wants to duo Q and play games with me. That's why I called him over. Haewon could hardly believe it. But Go Taegyeom curled his lips into a wicked grin and once again spelled out Ju Hyeon-woo's thoughts in detail. Haewon's shocked gaze, which had been locked on Go Taegyeom, slowly shifted to the side, to Ju Hyeon-woo. Ju Hyeon-woo was standing there, his face so red he didn't dare lift his head. Haewon asked him, "When did you start having these kinds of thoughts?" Seo Haeyeong's eyes were icy as he watched from the side. He felt that rather than asking, "When did you start wanting this?" Haewon should have asked, "When did you see it?" At this moment, Go Taegyeom had already selected his champion. His fingers moved as he got ready to start the match. Haewon still hadn't reacted. He had originally thought that Ju Hyeon-woo was the last line of defense in the friendship among these four people. But now, nothing was a secret anymore. Ju Hyeon-woo had also become someone who knows. In the end, it seemed like the only one who had been constantly troubled over these matters was Haewon himself. On the surface, Ju Hyeon-woo was just watching the match from the side, but inside he was in turmoil. He had previously suspected that the three of them were trio queuing together, and now all of it had been confirmed, and what's more, Haewon would even get beaten up in the middle of it. But Ju Hyeon-woo still couldn't figure it out. Weren't you clearly very good friends? Behind him, Seo Haeyeong kept prodding him with words, forcing him to watch the match properly. Don't you like Haewon? Ju Hyeon-woo could also feel that terrifying sense of pressure from Seo Haeyeong. With Seo Haeyeong standing right behind him and speaking in that tone, a cold chill ran down his spine. After Haewon and Go Taegyeom finished their duo queue, Seo Haeyeong directly called Ju Hyeon-woo up to play and even reminded him to bring donuts to replenish his energy. Seo Haeyeong walked over to Haewon's side and supported him with one arm, letting Haewon lean against him. Then he lifted his eyes to look at Ju Hyeon-woo on the opposite side and asked, "Want to go up now?" Ju Hyeon-woo stayed where he was, like a puppet with its strings cut, unable to say a single word. Go Taegyeom yanked him up from the chair and shoved the donuts into his hand. "Since you're so curious, then go over and try." Ju Hyeon-woo stared at the donuts in his hand, and his heart suddenly gave a violent tremor. Across from him, Seo Haeyeong kept fanning the flames. "Don't you really want to give it a try? You've always liked Haewon before, haven't you?" In that moment, Ju Hyeon-woo felt like he was about to lose his mind. Seo Haeyeong kept staring at him, fixing him with an unblinking gaze. Go Taegyeom was also urging him from behind to hurry up and go in, egging him on together with the other one. This was indeed what he had always wanted. But at this moment, his heart was beating too fast, thump thump, and it simply wouldn't calm down. Standing in front of him was Haewon, very handsome with a good personality and incredibly strong at games. But in the next second, he suddenly realized that Haewon was actually crying. Ju Hyeon-woo froze on the spot, his mind going completely blank. Seeing him like this, Seo Haeyeong was speechless and directly asked, "Are you scared?" In fact, Ju Hyeon-woo really wanted to just take out the French baguette and donut and start eating, but that barrier in his heart was something he still couldn't cross. So Seo Haeyeong decided to give him another push. Ju Hyeon-woo just stood there in a daze, not daring to let his eyes wander. At this moment, Haewon forced himself to lift his head. In the next second, he shouted at Ju Hyeon-woo, "Get out." That shout yanked Ju Hyeon-woo back to reality. He immediately turned around and almost fled the room. Go Taegyeom stood there, looking at him with open mockery all over his face. Ju Hyeon-woo walked into the living room, desperately trying to slow his breathing and calm himself down. But the impact from just now had been too heavy. No matter what he did, he couldn't steady himself. Haewon hadn't expected that he, who had clearly come to the villa with the intention of fixing their relationship, would, after just 2 days, 10 years of knowing Seo Haeyeong, the 6 years he had known Go Taegyeom, and the 5 years he had known Ju Hyeon-woo, the relationships piled up over those years, had all shattered completely in just these short 2 days. As expected, he still couldn't endure this kind of situation. In the middle of the night, Haewon decided to leave this place. After finishing 3 rounds of games, Haewon was already exhausted to the limit, just like when he used to get beaten. If he just endured it, it would eventually end. This kind of relationship would also come to an end one day. While they were eating, Seo Haeyeong picked up a piece of meat. Then he told Haewon to open his mouth and said softly, "Eat it properly." Looking at Haewon like this, Ju Hyeon-woo's eyes were full of distress. The next second, Haewon suddenly stood up. Right after that, he practically rushed toward the bathroom. The 3 of them were still sitting at the dining table when they already heard the sound of Haewon vomiting in the bathroom. At that, Ju Hyeon-woo completely lost his temper and flung his spoon down with a clack. He started cursing outright, saying they had pushed Hae-won so far that he couldn't even eat. But Seo Haeyeong felt that what Ju Hyeon-woo was angry about was that he hadn't been able to join in with them. He stood up and walked toward the bathroom. At that moment, Hae-won was still retching in agony, unable to stop throwing up. Seo Haeyeong walked closer, pulled Hae-won's head into his arms, letting him lean against him. Hae-won cried as he trembled and said that he wanted to go home. Seo Haeyeong told him that he was still on vacation and that his holiday had not ended yet. Hae-won really couldn't understand. Why did he have to treat him like this? He had clearly already apologized. Hae-won never imagined things would turn out like this. This liking he had hidden for so long, once spoken aloud, actually demanded such a price. Seo Haeyeong raised his hand to cup his face. His tone was very gentle, yet all the more cruel, because we are friends. Hearing this, Hae-won completely collapsed, so desperate that he felt cold. That night, Ju Hyeon-woo kept going over the whole thing in his head. No matter how he thought about it, he just couldn't figure it out. What on earth were they thinking? He felt he ought to ask clearly. Is this really what Hae-won wants? When he went to get some water, he suddenly heard a noise outside. He followed the sound and looked over, only to realize it was Hae-won. Hae-won was so haggard he hardly looked like himself. And Hae-won was also looking right at Ju Hyeon-woo. Ju Hyeon-woo's face flushed in an instant. He hastily turned his head away, shut his eyes, and desperately tried to stop himself from thinking. But he still couldn't hold it back. Just then, Hae-won came closer and lightly tugged at the hem of Ju Hyeon-woo's clothes. But in the next second, Ju Hyeon-woo abruptly shook off his hand, and in his panic even hit the back of Hae-won's hand. Yet Hae-won didn't say a single word. Watching Hae-won turn around to leave, Ju Hyeon-woo asked him where he was going, but Hae-won neither looked back nor answered. So Ju Hyeon-woo could only stand where he was, staring as Hae-won's back grew farther and farther away. 5 a little after 2 a.m. Go Taegyeom was woken up by the sound of Ju Hyeon-woo calling Seo Haeyeong to get up. Still half asleep, Seo Haeyeong heard Ju Hyeon-woo ask if he knew where Hae-won had gone. Seo Haeyeong froze for a moment and said, "Isn't Hae-won in his room?" Ju Hyeon-woo told him that Hae-won had gone out 3 hours ago and still hadn't come back. The moment Go Taegyeom heard that, he immediately got worked up. Cursing as he went, he rushed over and yanked the door open. He grabbed the car keys and turned to head out. The next second, however, the keys were snatched from his hand by Seo Haeyeong behind him. Seo Haeyeong told Go Taegyeom to stay here and sleep, and that he would go bring Hae-won back. So furious he wanted to curse, Go Taegyeom snapped, "That's my car." Seo Haeyeong only replied with one line, "Lend it to me for a bit." As soon as the words left his mouth, he drove the car away, and Go Taegyeom exploded on the spot. He lifted his foot and kicked the sofa next to him hard. Seeing him like that, Ju Hyeon-woo didn't say anything more. He just stood there, like he'd lost his soul. But in his head, Hae-won's aggrieved face from just now kept flashing back. He was about to be driven crazy and could only say to Go Taegyeom, "I'm going out too." It was already 2:30 a.m. now, and there was no sign of Hae-won on the road at all. Seo Haeyeong felt it was impossible. If Hae-won had only gone out after he'd fallen asleep. At that hour, there shouldn't have been any buses, nor any taxis. Hae-won also shouldn't have had anywhere to go. At that moment, he saw a message Hae-won had sent a little after 11 p.m. the previous night. "I want to go home." Seeing that Hae-won had sent him a message, the corners of Seo Haeyeong's lips lifted slightly. The next second, he immediately dialed Hae-won's number. But no matter how many times he called in a row, the only response he got was, "The phone is switched off." The smile on his face gradually cooled and turned gloomy. The first person to find Hae-won turned out to be Ju Hyeon-woo. And Ju Hyeon-woo had always harbored those kinds of feelings for Hae-won. Hae-won tried to raise his hand and grab the hem of Ju Hyeon-woo's clothes, but Ju Hyeon-woo accidentally shook him off, even hitting the back of his hand. Seeing Ju Hyeon-woo react like that, Hae-won's heart suddenly gave a violent tremor, and only then did he realize things between him and Ju Hyeon-woo were over as well. Helpless, he turned and walked away. Even when Ju Hyeon-woo chased after him from behind and asked where he was going, Hae-won didn't look back, because it was all over. At that moment, Hae-won only wanted to go home, to go back home and close his eyes, to go back to that narrow, shabby home. Not this spacious, clean villa. He only wanted to go to a place where he could feel at ease. His mind was already blank. He only wanted to get a good sleep, but he was distracted and accidentally twisted his ankle. Later, he went to a nearby motel. Dragging his exhausted body, he walked inside. He tossed the key onto the table and could only collapse powerlessly onto the bed. At this hour, the buses had stopped running, and he couldn't get a taxi either. Even his phone had run out of battery and shut off. But now, even if he wanted to sleep, he couldn't. The moment he thought about having to go back to work at the shop after the holiday, he was even more at a loss about what to do. Would Ju Hyeon-woo tell his sister? If he did, what was he supposed to do then? But even so, Haewon had no way out. He had to work. He needed money. Just as he was forcing his emotions down, a burst of footsteps suddenly sounded outside the door. Haewon jolted in shock and lifted his eyes to look out the window. Panting, Ju Hyeon-woo had actually managed to track him down all the way here. He asked Haewon why he wasn't answering his calls. Haewon only said that his phone was turned off. Ju Hyeon-woo asked if he could go in and talk, but seeing Haewon like this, he added another line. If Haewon wasn't feeling well, they could just talk at the door. Haewon's heart softened after all. He opened the door and let Ju Hyeon-woo in. Ju Hyeon-woo even thought Haewon had just gone out for a walk and said that Seo Haeyeong had gone to the bus terminal. But the very next second he saw that Haewon's foot was injured, and he immediately stepped forward, nervously asking if he was okay and telling him to be careful. Haewon shook off his hand directly and asked in a cold voice, "You came here? What exactly do you want to say?" Stammering, Ju Hyeon-woo finally brought up the matter of duo queuing to play games. Haewon's heart tightened. Could it be that he also wants to duo queue with me here? In response to Ju Hyeon-woo's earlier question, Haewon only gave 2 words. He didn't know, felt. There really wasn't much to say. Ju Hyeon-woo asked if he was really okay. If there was anything he needed help with, they could try no matter what and see if he could be of any help. Haewon looked at the Ju Hyeon-woo in front of him, but what suddenly came to mind was Seo Haeyeong saying earlier that he should join in too. So he probed in a joking tone. Did you mess up what you originally wanted to say? At that time, you actually wanted to join in too, right? Ju Hyeon-woo's face instantly flushed red, and he hurriedly said no. Haewon leaned back against the wall and stayed silent for quite a while. Then he repeated the earlier question, saying that if Ju Hyeon-woo came here just because he wanted to duo queue and play games with him, that should be easy. After all, Go Taegyeom and Seo Haeyeong had already played several rounds with him just now. When he heard this, Ju Hyeon-woo was stunned on the spot. He just felt like Haewon had gone crazy, wondering how he could suddenly turn like this. Haewon replied expressionlessly, "Because we're friends." For a moment, Ju Hyeon-woo didn't know what to say. When he raised his hand to cover his face, his gaze still, uncontrollably, fell on Haewon. The next second, his face flushed again, and he quickly turned his head and stood up. He said he was going out to buy something to eat, but Haewon told him to bring back some alcohol while he was at it. He was just about to go out when Haewon behind him suddenly called out to him. Ju Hyeon-woo turned back and asked what was wrong, and Haewon only said, "It's up." Ju Hyeon-woo lowered his head and took a look, then realized what he meant. He immediately rushed out of the room. After Ju Hyeon-woo left, a wave of nausea immediately surged up in Haewon. At that moment, he heard a phone ringing. It turned out to be Ju Hyeon-woo's phone. He picked it up and saw that it was a call from Seo Haeyeong. Once the call was connected, Seo Haeyeong told him to chat with Ju Hyeon-woo for a bit first. He would come over later. He had always thought he was the one who understood Seo Haeyeong best, the one who had spent the most time with him and was closest to him. But after what had happened recently, he suddenly felt Seo Haeyeong was becoming more and more like a stranger, so unfamiliar that he was starting to feel afraid. Just then, Ju Hyeon-woo came back. Haewon asked him, "Did you tell Seo Haeyeong that I'm here?" Ju Hyeon-woo shot back, "You can't even tell him that?" Haewon just felt powerless. He hadn't expected that Seo Haeyeong would actually come to see him in person. Haewon downed drink after drink so fiercely that Ju Hyeon-woo was scared. He hurried to grab Haewon's hand, wanting to stop him from drinking. But Haewon said, "You drink with me too. Drinking alone is way too boring." Ju Hyeon-woo and Haewon were duo queuing in a game, right in the heat of battle. Seo Haeyeong suddenly came in. After a bottle and a half of liquor, Ju Hyeon-woo started to feel dizzy. He couldn't tell if it was because the night was too late or he was just too tired. To break the awkwardness, he would occasionally force out a few pointless lines of small talk. But very soon, his gaze was drawn away by Haewon beside him. Haewon was quietly staring at the turned-off TV. As the alcohol kicked in, he only felt his whole body heating up, an unbearable restlessness rising in him. Looking at Haewon like this, Ju Hyeon-woo suddenly felt that, at this very moment, he himself was like a starving wolf gone mad by the roadside. He was very close to Haewon, and slowly, his hand moved toward Haewon of its own accord. Haewon also noticed Ju Hyeon-woo's movement. He turned his head to look at Ju Hyeon-woo, and in the next second, he was directly kissed by him. Only then did Ju Hyeon-woo come back to his senses, feeling a bit embarrassed, so he quickly pulled away and hurriedly apologized to Haewon. Looking at Ju Hyeon-woo in this state, Haewon knew very well what he was thinking right now, so he stepped forward directly, and with just a light push from him, the other actually fell straight back. Haewon could feel that the force with which Ju Hyeon-woo touched him was exactly the same as those two people's. But the reaction he gave was completely different. This instead confirmed Haewon's suspicion, but it was still a little strange. Since when did Ju Hyeon-woo start staring at him with that kind of look? Haewon simply asked straight out, "Do you like me?" At this moment, no matter how Ju Hyeon-woo reacted or answered, it could no longer be hidden. Sure enough, just as Haewon took the initiative, Ju Hyeon-woo visibly panicked for a moment. Haewon stared at his expression and movements and became even more certain, just like those two guys, he had only been pretending all along. Since that was the case, he might as well tear off that layer of hypocrisy. Even if it hurt, it had to be torn off. At first, when facing Haewon's offensive, Ju Hyeon-woo still had that want to avoid but not avoiding attitude. But when the probing and confrontation went deeper, he finally revealed his true nature. Yet this sudden change of face from Ju Hyeon-woo still caught Haewon off guard, to the point that he could hardly bear it. After he indulged himself to the verge of losing control and let everything out, only then did Ju Hyeon-woo start to listen to Haewon. Yet his movements were still like a beast's, as if he wanted to devour the person in front of him, only wanting to force him to call out his name. Just as the situation was spiraling further out of control, Seo Haeyeong came in. When Seo Haeyeong saw this scene, his face instantly darkened, and his anger exploded on the spot. He lifted his foot and viciously kicked toward Ju Hyeon-woo. Interrupted by force, Ju Hyeon-woo flared up on the spot and cursed. He turned his head and saw that the person standing beside him was Seo Haeyeong, and the next second he crashed right into that grim, icy question. Haewon finally couldn't hold back anymore and shouted back at Seo Haeyeong. But what answered him was Seo Haeyeong's merciless fists and kicks. He never would have thought that Ju Hyeon-woo actually had this kind of perversion. So this is his true face. After taking a kick, Ju Hyeon-woo twisted his head around in anger. But in the blink of an eye, he met Seo Haeyeong's furious glare, and that oppressive feeling instantly snapped him back to his senses. Only then did he notice Haewon on the ground. It turned out Haewon had already been tormented by him to the point of being almost unrecognizable. Yet Ju Hyeon-woo immediately started putting on an act again, pretending to ask Haewon with false concern if he was okay. Standing to the side watching, Seo Haeyeong could only feel utterly speechless. He really wanted to roll his eyes at him on the spot. Seo Haeyeong walked over to Haewon's side, then reached out to help Haewon put his clothes back on. Facing Seo Haeyeong's questioning, Haewon said weakly that he had already told Ju Hyeon-woo to stop just now, but he was still very resistant, and lifted his hand to smack away the hand Seo Haeyeong had reached out. Seo Haeyeong didn't lose his temper. His expression merely darkened, and instead a slight smile tugged at his lips. The next second, he tossed the car keys to Ju Hyeon-woo, telling him to get in the car and go have a proper talk with Go Taegyeom. Before leaving, Ju Hyeon-woo even turned back to glance at Haewon. Haewon collapsed onto the ground and didn't say a single word. Ju Hyeon-woo walked closer, wanting to reach out and touch him, but Haewon dodged away. Seeing Haewon treat him like this, Ju Hyeon-woo flared up on the spot and cursed. He slammed the car door hard and turned away. Seo Haeyeong calmly lit a cigarette. He said to Haewon that right now he didn't even know who he should hit, Haewon or Ju Hyeon-woo. Then he pressed down on Haewon's leg, not letting him dodge. He leaned down and forced the question, "Who brought it up first, exactly?" Haewon covered his face with both hands, his whole body trembling, and slowly admitted that he was the one who suggested it. But that only made Seo Haeyeong even more confused. That scene from just now kept flashing back over and over in Haewon's mind. Haewon bit down on his teeth, anger in his voice as he snapped back that it was what Seo Haeyeong had asked for. Haewon couldn't understand what he even meant by that. Haewon told him that back in the villa just now, he was the one who pulled Ju Hyeon-woo in. So isn't everything going exactly the way he wanted? As soon as the words left his mouth, Haewon felt a searing stab of pain in his thigh. He lowered his head and saw that Seo Haeyeong was using him as an ashtray. Haewon went pale with fright on the spot. The next second, Seo Haeyeong lit another cigarette. He replied to Haewon coldly, "Just now was just now, now it's different." He even said Haewon was just looking for excuses. After speaking, he flicked the ash onto Haewon's thigh again, his tone heavier. At the end of the day, it was Haewon who started it. Then he told Haewon to first get himself mentally prepared to take a beating. The more Haewon thought about it, the more wronged he felt. He gritted his teeth and struggled for a long time, then finally roared at Seo Haeyeong, "Why is it that every time things have to go exactly the way you want?" Haewon himself couldn't say where this sudden sense of self-respect had come from, but he also understood that talking back to Seo Haeyeong like this would only lead to one outcome: being mercilessly punched and kicked by Seo Haeyeong. Haewon could only do what he had always done, clutching himself tightly with both hands, crying out in pain. Seo Haeyeong kept pressing him down with harsh, grating words, while at the same time raising his foot and kicking hard into Hyeon's stomach. Hyeon coughed up blood on the spot. Immediately after, Seo Haeyeong yanked him up, interrogating him. Was it all the same to him no matter who went in? Then he chased after that, asking how many people there were. He even asked just how many people Hyeon had given himself to. Every one of Seo Haeyeong's questions echoed over and over in Hyeon's mind, and all Hyeon could think was, what on earth does this have to do with now? So all he could say was that he couldn't remember. Hearing this, Seo Haeyeong was completely stunned. He then showed a look of regret, said that Hyeon ought to remember, and locked him in the bathroom from the outside. Hyeon, who was locked in the bathroom, vaguely heard someone outside speaking in a low voice. It seemed that Go Taegyeom and Ju Hyeon-woo had arrived, and Ju Hyeon-woo asked Seo Haeyeong, "You just locked Hyeon up like this?" Seo Haeyeong felt it didn't matter. He thought Hyeon had brought it all on himself. He raised his hand and placed it on Ju Hyeon-woo's shoulder, his tone as cold as a knife. "If you dare meet Hyeon alone outside again, you'll die. No, Hyeon will die." After Seo Haeyeong locked him in the bathroom, Hyeon's resolve and psychological defenses crumbled bit by bit. The bathroom was dark and cold, so cold it pierced his bones. In a daze, he seemed to see Seo Haeyeong's face and seemed to hear Ju Hyeon-woo shouting, his consciousness drifting in and out. At this moment, Seo Haeyeong picked up the shower head and deliberately turned on the cold water, aiming it straight at Hyeon. The expression on his face was frighteningly grim. Hyeon could only curl up in the corner, shaking uncontrollably. But how could Seo Haeyeong possibly let him off so easily? He directly turned the water pressure up even higher. The water suddenly blasted toward Hyeon. Even when Hyeon cried out, "It's so cold," Seo Haeyeong acted as if he hadn't heard a thing and continued regardless. Then, seething with anger, he flung the shower head aside, rushed over and forced Hyeon. "Who else have you given it to? There's no way it's only 1 or 2 people. It's already more than 10, right?" Hyeon shook his head desperately, saying no. But Seo Haeyeong didn't believe him at all, saying he'd heard them all earlier, a lot of them, and seeing Hyeon like this, Seo Haeyeong finally stopped pressing him. He pulled Hyeon into his arms. Hyeon just leaned against him like that and cried so hard in grievance he was on the verge of breaking down. But in the next second, Seo Haeyeong suddenly raised his hand and slapped him hard. It turned out Seo Haeyeong was just changing tactics, forcing Hyeon to say those people's names. Hyeon really didn't know how to say it. Those other two, Seo Haeyeong obviously already knew they were Ju Hyeon-woo and Go Taegyeom. Hyeon still refused to open his mouth, and Seo Haeyeong was completely infuriated, feeling that Hyeon was just being disobedient. So he put Hyeon back into the bathtub. Before he turned off the light and went out, he threw down a line, telling Hyeon to keep thinking it over properly before he came back. Then with a loud bang, he slammed the door shut. In the next second, there wasn't a single bit of light left in the bathroom. Hyeon called Seo Haeyeong's name over and over again, but outside, there wasn't even a single response. Only then did Hyeon realize Seo Haeyeong wasn't joking. He suddenly rushed to the door. He twisted the doorknob hard, only to find the door had already been locked. No matter how he tried, it wouldn't open. The more anxious he became, the less he could figure it out. What on earth was Seo Haeyeong so angry about? Obviously, he had never cared about who he played games with, but now it seemed like Seo Haeyeong was deliberately finding fault. Obviously, the one who first suggested that Go Taegyeom and Ju Hyeon-woo join in and help from the side was Seo Haeyeong, and he had done exactly that, so why was he still flying into such a rage? He had no idea how much time had passed when, in a daze, Hyeon vaguely sensed someone coming in, but he couldn't make out the person's face. It might be Ju Hyeon-woo, it might be Go Taegyeom, it might also be Seo Haeyeong. It might even be that every time someone came in, it was Seo Haeyeong. Even when he forced his eyes open, in this darkness where he couldn't see anything, he could still hear Seo Haeyeong's anger-suppressed scolding. In such a closed and pitch-black space, his sense of time had been dulled and stretched. He had no idea how long it had been, just a few hours or already a whole day. He didn't know what Go Taegyeom and Ju Hyeon-woo were doing either, and whether, at this point, the only person he could still turn to was Ju Hyeon-woo. By this point, even his own sensations felt like illusions. He didn't want to think about anything anymore. All he knew was that it was so cold here, and he wanted to get out. But no matter how he kept pounding on the door, it remained utterly silent on the other side, without the slightest response. In the dark bathroom, only the sound of water droplets falling one by one remained. Hyeon was already physically and mentally exhausted. He glanced back over his shoulder on reflex. I keep feeling that in that darkness, Everything is making strange, eerie sounds. Hyeon is so terrified that he covers his ears tightly, trembling as he calls out to Seo Haeyeong outside that he's scared. Little by little, the bit of willpower he was forcing himself to hold onto shatters too, leaving only boundless regret, and he can't even care about his self-esteem anymore. Now all he knows how to say is, "I'm sorry." Clearly, he doesn't even know what he did wrong, but all he can do is beg softly for mercy like this. Before Seo Haeyeong came in, Hyeon kept doing psychological hints on himself, reminding himself absolutely not to talk back to Seo Haeyeong. Because he was too afraid, he kept his ears covered the whole time. He didn't even notice when Seo Haeyeong came in. Seo Haeyeong picked up Hyeon's phone and opened the contacts, thinking that if he relied on Hyeon to remember on his own, there was no way he could recall everyone he had been involved with. So he decided to personally help him remember. Then he yanked Hyeon over to his side. He scrolled through the list, asking Hyeon about each name, one by one. After everything that had just happened, Hyeon's consciousness was already floating. No matter who Seo Haeyeong asked about, he would only mechanically nod and say, They were almost at the end of the contacts list. Seo Haeyeong even sighed, remarking that there were really a lot of people. He felt that Hyeon ought to apologize. Hearing this, Hyeon barely even thought before immediately saying sorry to Seo Haeyeong. He was afraid that if he was a second late, he would make Seo Haeyeong even angrier, yet even though he was already being as careful as humanly possible, Seo Haeyeong still shook him off angrily and turned to walk toward the door. Before closing the door, Seo Haeyeong shot Haewon a cold look, telling him to reflect slowly. Haewon watched in despair as the door closed once again, and Haewon himself was once more thrown back into this terrifying darkness. He pounded on the door with all his strength, saying, "I'm sorry," over and over, but Seo Haeyeong never opened it. At the same time, Haewon again felt that in the darkness behind him, those things were making eerie sounds. His whole body was shaking with fear, and he could only helplessly pat the door panel. Again and again, he apologized to Seo Haeyeong on the other side of the door. Haewon, who had been tormented for so long, the moment he saw Seo Haeyeong, his aggrieved tears immediately streamed down his face. In the dark bathroom, that door suddenly opened, and in that instant, a sliver of light came through. He felt that someone had come in. He didn't know who it was. It might have been Seo Haeyeong, but it also felt like Go Taegyeom, or maybe Ju Hyeon-woo. It seemed like all three of them had come in, or perhaps it had always been Seo Haeyeong each time. Because it was too dark inside and they didn't speak, Haewon simply couldn't tell. Then the door closed again. He didn't know how much time had passed. In a daze, Haewon heard Seo Haeyeong's voice calling him to get up. He turned his head, and it really was Seo Haeyeong. Seo Haeyeong looked at him with a smile and asked, "Have you reflected on what you did?" For a moment, Hyeon still hadn't come back to his senses. When he confirmed that the person in front of him really was Seo Haeyeong, he immediately scrambled to his feet and threw himself into Seo Haeyeong's arms, crying wronged and apologizing over and over. When Seo Haeyeong asked him what he had done wrong, Hyeon couldn't think about anything else and could only say, "I was wrong in every way," then kept apologizing. Seo Haeyeong raised a hand to gently stroke his face and asked if he wanted to make up. By then, Hyeon was already crying so hard he couldn't stop, choking out a plea for Seo Haeyeong not to leave him here. Seo Haeyeong didn't understand why he was crying so sadly. Like soothing a child, he reached out to wipe Hyeon's tears away. With his eyes brimming like that, in Seo Haeyeong's eyes, Hyeon really was very beautiful. So Seo Haeyeong asked him, "Is there anything else you want to say?" Hearing this, Hyeon froze on the spot. His lips moved, but no words came out. Even starting to speak became halting and clumsy. In a trembling voice, he told Seo Haeyeong, "I like you." After hearing that, Seo Haeyeong smiled in satisfaction. But with that expression on Hyeon's face, the words just seemed off no matter how you looked at it. So Seo Haeyeong lifted his hand and pushed the corners of his mouth up into the curve of a smile, feeling that only then did it look pleasing. But the very next second, when Seo Haeyeong had still been smiling, the next second, his expression darkened. He picked up the shower head and started rinsing Haewon. As the water flowed down, the wounds all over Haewon's body became even clearer. There was not the slightest bit of softness in Seo Haeyeong's eyes. Haewon kept crying. Seo Haeyeong yanked him up and coldly asked, "Isn't this exactly what you like?" Forced to the end of his rope, Haewon could only say, "I like it." Seo Haeyeong leaned in close to him and, as if giving a reward, said, "I'm helping you here. You're getting the better end of the deal." Haewon couldn't respond with a single word. Seo Haeyeong asked again, "Am I being too soft-hearted? If you behave a little better now, it won't turn into this next time." With that, he pushed open the bathroom door. Haewon lifted his head slightly. Go Taegyeom and Ju Hyeon-woo were standing right at the doorway, staring straight at Haewon in that moment. The expressions on the two of them were completely different. Even after walking out of the bathroom, Haewon's body still couldn't stop trembling, and into his field of vision suddenly came a hand, covered his eyes. But in his ears, those strange sounds still didn't stop. Haewon only felt his mind was a complete mess. Behind him, Seo Haeyeong's voice sounded again. The next second, Seo Haeyeong shoved him hard back into the bathroom. Ju Hyeon-woo followed him in as well. Ju Hyeon-woo finally began to reveal his true colors. Thinking back to 2 days ago when Seo Haeyeong had also been there, that time the three of them had queued up with Haewon to play games. The more Ju Hyeon-woo thought about it, the more excited he became. At this moment, there was only one thought left in his mind. The scenes he had fantasized about over and over were finally going to become reality. He just wanted to see that expression appear on Haewon's face with his own eyes. Go Taegyeom watched Ju Hyeon-woo's whole operation and just found it absurd and speechless. Ju Hyeon-woo lifted Haewon straight out of the bathroom, then set him down on the sofa. Haewon was still trembling non-stop, his whole body shaking, and he kept apologizing under his breath. The three of them were playing water polo in the pool. Go Taegyeom and Seo Haeyeong refused to concede to each other. Neither was willing to lose, but in Ju Hyeon-woo's eyes, neither of them was any good. Haewon just sat quietly on the edge of the pool, yet the sounds of the three of them kept pouring into his ears. This kind of atmosphere made Haewon feel suffocated. He really didn't want to stay any longer. He hid in the laundry room, wanting to dig out his own clothes, but there was nothing inside. Strange, how could his clothes be gone? Even hiding here, he could still hear their loud laughter. That laughter sounded especially harsh to Haewon. Now, as long as he heard their voices, his mind would instantly turn into a complete mess. At that moment, Seo Haeyeong's voice suddenly came from behind him. Haewon slowly lowered the hands that were covering his ears, his fingers still trembling. Seo Haeyeong asked him, "Did you come here because you wanted to play games again? Were you planning that whoever came in, you'd have a round with them? But the person coming in now is me," said Seo Haeyeong, then lifted Haewon up onto the washing machine. Haewon immediately explained, "It's not like that, I just came to look for some clothes." But Seo Haeyeong didn't believe it at all, thinking this was yet another excuse of his, convinced that he made excuses every day. Then, disregarding everything, Seo Haeyeong just went ahead with what he wanted to do. Haewon knew that the other man wanted to play a game again. This time, the way Seo Haeyeong played was making whipped cream ice cream. He was actually this skilled at it. After all, this was the first time Haewon had played this kind of thing with Seo Haeyeong. In the end, with one careless move, the ice cream smeared onto Seo Haeyeong's face. Frightened, Haewon immediately reached out to wipe it off, apologizing to him over and over. At that moment, he saw Seo Haeyeong raise one hand. Haewon had already braced himself for a hit, but Seo Haeyeong only used that cream-covered hand to gently touch his cheek. He even told him, "There's no need to apologize for this." Then he walked away without looking back. Sitting alone on the washing machine, Haewon was so aggrieved that he burst into tears. Those kinds of pain he has already gotten used to now, but that doesn't mean he isn't afraid. It's just that he seems to have built up a tolerance, so he can endure it. He even felt that right now he was no different from the rag that Seo Haeyeong talked about. The moment Seo Haeyeong saw Haewon wearing Go Taegyeom's clothes, his expression instantly darkened. He raised his foot and kicked Haewon. Dragging his exhausted body, Haewon slowly walked out of the laundry room. As he passed by the living room, he was suddenly startled by the voices of Go Taegyeom and Ju Hyeon-woo. At this point, he already had an instinctive fear of them. The two of them were chatting and laughing in the living room at that moment. Just standing here, Haewon couldn't stop himself from trembling. Every time they laughed, in Haewon's ears, it sounded like demons chuckling softly. Haewon didn't want to see them and turned around to head for his room. But he couldn't find his own clothes, so he just grabbed something at random to change into, only to realize after putting it on that it was absurdly big. He lowered his head and sniffed it to make sure there was no smell on it. It should be something no one had worn yet. All of a sudden, he felt that someone had come in. He looked up and saw that it was Seo Haeyeong. Right now, Seo Haeyeong's face was so dark it was frightening. Haewon didn't think much of it and simply said he happened to be looking for him. Seo Haeyeong let out a cold laugh, full of helplessness and anger. Just as Haewon said he had something to give him, Seo Haeyeong suddenly strode forward on him. Taking advantage of Haewon's complete lack of guard, he lifted his foot and delivered a vicious kick. He pressed Haewon with questions, asking why he had gone back to the state again in less than a day. Was it because earlier they had made that cream ice cream together? The pain made Haewon go numb, and fear chilled him even more. Looking at Seo Haeyeong, He simply couldn't figure out why Seo Haeyeong could be so capricious in his moods. Seeing that Haewon did not answer, Seo Haeyeong went straight up, grabbed him, and dragged him outside. Haewon was so frightened he trembled, desperately apologizing to Seo Haeyeong. But Seo Haeyeong did not even spare him a glance. In the living room, Go Taegyeom and Ju Hyeon-woo heard the commotion and both turned to look over. Like an object, Haewon was violently thrown down in front of them by Seo Haeyeong. The two even laughed and said how could Seo Haeyeong be so rude. Haewon panicked until his eyes burned hot, his terrified eyes wide open. What should he do? Was he going to be beaten again? What if he was locked in the bathroom again? He could only hope that someone would come and save him. In the next second, he jerked his head up and looked to the side at Ju Hyeon-woo for help. Ju Hyeon-woo raised a hand and touched his hair. With a fake smile on his face, he softly asked what was wrong with him. Seo Haeyeong, sitting to the side, said coolly, "Do whatever you want with him." Ju Hyeon-woo's hand roamed restlessly, and Haewon remembered what had happened before. His chest tightened. He did not want to go through it again. He had to run away immediately, but halfway through his escape, he accidentally tripped. In fact, it was Seo Haeyeong who deliberately stretched out his leg and tripped Haewon. The shadows of the three people behind him loomed over, closing in like evil spirits, which meant that Haewon was about to become the food for their revelry. Haewon kept refusing to cooperate. Seo Haeyeong raised his hand and slapped him straight across the face. Go Taegyeom wasn't the least bit polite either. Seo Haeyeong's face was expressionless as he stared at the crying Haewon. In the next second, he picked up the already opened bottle of liquor on the table and forcefully shoved it into Haewon's mouth, making him drink. His tone of voice was as cold as ice. Ju Hyeon-woo, who had made his entrance with the pure, innocent puppy persona, completely lost control at this moment. After downing a whole bottle, Seo Haeyeong stood to the side, so calm it was terrifying. When the others even started joking about Haewon, Seo Haeyeong directly told them to shut up. Ju Hyeon-woo felt the game was almost at its climax, and he too began to itch with restlessness. He listened to Haewon call his name over and over, saying he hated this, but that only made Ju Hyeon-woo more excited. At this moment he was completely led by desire, like a beast, and the bit of pity he'd had before was long gone. Seo Haeyeong had also become an accomplice to the beast, his face cold the whole time as he gripped Haewon's hand in a deathlock, so Haewon couldn't break free at all. Is this the white moonlight in my heart? Is this really the white moonlight in my heart? He let Go Taegyeom and Ju Hyeon-woo mess around, and even used Haewon like an ashtray. Even Go Taegyeom couldn't stand that, and couldn't help but speak up to Seo Haeyeong, telling him it was about time to stop. The now idle Go Taegyeom noticed the commotion in the back. Haewon was looking for a chance to escape this game, but Ju Hyeon-woo had absolutely no intention of letting Haewon go. As for Ju Hyeon-woo's way of doing things, Go Taegyeom looked completely disdainful and complained outright, "You're being way too weird." Over here, Go Taegyeom and Seo Haeyeong, however, acted as if nothing had happened and sat down to continue chatting, and from then on it became Ju Hyeon-woo's stage. When it came to this kind of game, he had his own way of understanding it. His methods were rough, the process was long, and he had an especially large variety of tricks. Seo Haeyeong was also forced to broaden his horizons. He noticed that Haewon was crying, and Ju Hyeon-woo immediately pretended to apologize to him again. Seo Haeyeong could also see it. Haewon had started to stop cooperating. Seo Haeyeong then stepped forward. Seeing Seo Haeyeong come over, Ju Hyeon-woo was stunned for a moment, as if he didn't understand what he was going to do. In the next second, Seo Haeyeong forcefully grabbed Haewon's hair and yanked it back. With a disdainful and oppressive expression, he opened his mouth and spat out harsh, cutting words. Haewon was so frightened that he trembled and could only bow his head and admit fault. He let Ju Hyeon-woo start the game again. Seo Haeyeong stood by watching as the game advanced step by step. His expression grew darker and darker, and that rage on the verge of exploding was clearly directed at Haewon. Sure enough, the next second he made his move. The pitiful Haewon had only one thought left in his head. He wanted to go home. With his body and mind tormented to such an extreme, in the end Haewon still couldn't hold on, and he couldn't fend them off anymore. Seo Haeyeong, who had been watching from the sidelines the whole time, also joined in at this moment, and his blows were just as merciless. At this moment Haewon had only one thought left in his mind. He knew something about this felt very wrong, but if it kept going like this, he really wouldn't be able to take it. He liked Seo Haeyeong on the one hand, and on the other hand, he was deathly afraid of him. He was far too terrifying. Haewon even felt it was as if he was going to kill him. In this kind of situation, not only would no one save Haewon, he himself would still. Yet the two of them kept going until midnight. By this time, Ju Hyeon-woo and the others were already asleep. Seo Haeyeong held Hyeon in his arms and walked toward the bathroom. Hyeon's whole body was limp. His whole body was still trembling. Seo Haeyeong felt it too. He put Hyeon into the bathtub. Then he picked up the bath sponge and washed him. He stared at Hyeon's arm, at the burn mark he had just made with his cigarette. Seo Haeyeong suddenly pulled him into a tight embrace, pressing his whole body against him. It was as if Seo Haeyeong wanted to say something, as if he wanted to confess. But the next second, he felt again that Hyeon was the one at fault, that everything was Hyeon's fault. It was Hyeon who was wrong. On the third day after dawn, Seo Haeyeong got up and cleaned up the mess all over the floor. The other two still hadn't woken up. He stuffed the trash into a garbage bag and set it aside for the moment. Then he went upstairs and walked to Hyeon's room. He came in carrying snacks and, smiling, called Hyeon to get up. Hyeon's eyes went empty the moment he opened them. Now he didn't even want to listen to the whispers Seo Haeyeong murmured against his ear. The only reason Seo Haeyeong was treating him so well now was because of what had happened yesterday. He acted as if nothing had happened, sitting by the bed with a smile and calling him to get up and play, but Hyeon knew. What might be waiting for him tomorrow could be the same kind of pain as yesterday. Right now, Hyeon only wanted to sleep, even if it was just to escape this reality for a short while. Haewon still wouldn't get up, so Seo Haeyeong simply reached out and yanked him to his feet. He changed Haewon into his own clothes. He even asked Haewon, "This smell is really nice, isn't it?" Haewon felt that Seo Haeyeong was treating him like a doll. Once he got tired of changing its clothes, it would be a doll he could toss aside at any time. Seo Haeyeong held Haewon in his arms, saying he was scared, but Haewon didn't respond at all. Seo Haeyeong got annoyed again and just shouted at him. Haewon was so frightened that he flinched and hurriedly answered. And only then did Seo Haeyeong calm down, even praising him. "Good job." Haewon really wanted to rest, but the moment he thought of rent and tuition, and of having to shoulder the cost of living, I just couldn't stop. Thinking back to that time, after Seo Haeyeong started college and moved to a new place, Haewon came over to hang out and fell in love with it at first sight. Seo Haeyeong asked if he wanted to move in. Haewon's face instantly turned red, his heart panicked for a moment, and he hurried to say it wasn't like that. "I already have a place to stay where I'm working part-time now. Suddenly moving out, no matter how you think about it, it wouldn't be appropriate." Then Seo Haeyeong said again that there were plenty of rooms here. If it were the usual Seo Haeyeong, after hearing my refusal, he'd probably just respond mildly with a "really." But that day he just had to add one more line, as if inviting me, yet also as if persuading me not to back away. But I have my pride too. I still turned down the person I liked. Looking back now, that choice I made then was not wrong. Seo Haeyeong picked up the popcorn and, as if coaxing a child, fed it to Hyeon one kernel at a time by his mouth. When the new semester starts, I'll be even farther away from Seo Haeyeong, and this bit of concern he has for me will probably cool down little by little, and before long he'll get tired of me. During the time that's left, I have to properly gather up this mess of a life. At that moment, Seo Haeyeong asked him if he wanted to look at the photos taken yesterday. Hyeon froze. What photos? He had no impression of it at all. When were they taken yesterday? Then Seo Haeyeong took out the photos and showed them to Hyeon, saying there were already 5. Every time they came to hang out, they took one and kept it in the villa. The moment Hyeon saw the photos, his breathing stopped for a second. In Hyeon's eyes, light finally returned. This is us from 4 years ago, us from 3 years ago, us from last year, and then this one from this year. Hyeon was stunned on the spot. Holding the photo up in front of his eyes, Seo Haeyeong said softly, "It came out really well, right?" Hyeon stared at himself in the photo. Hyeon broke down and burst into tears on the spot. Hyeon broke down and burst into tears on the spot. He cried so hard it was like his heart was being torn apart, his whole body trembling, even scratching himself until he bled. Startled, Seo Haeyeong immediately reached out and pinned him down with all his strength. Crying, Hyeon told Seo Haeyeong the same thing over and over again. He said that from now on he would never like Seo Haeyeong again. He did whatever Seo Haeyeong told him to do. He begged Seo Haeyeong, begged him to go back to how they used to be. If Seo Haeyeong thought that the him who was now like a rag was disgusting, then just give him a little more time, he would handle these things himself. But he really was about to reach his limit. Haewon broke down in tears, and there was only one thought left in his mind. Put the house and his job in order, clean all of this up, and then leave this place. It was just that. He didn't know where he could even go. Seo Haeyeong patted his back, only thinking that he was talking nonsense. Seo Haeyeong said, "If you're tired, just sleep." Through the glass, Haewon saw the vast night sea outside. The fog was pressing very low. The sea surface was a murky gray-black, and even the horizon couldn't be seen. He couldn't swim, and yet he thought about jumping into the sea. The vacation was clearly already over, but this trip to the villa had left an indelible shadow on Hae-won. The ground beneath his feet was very soft, as if with every step he took, his foot would sink downward, sinking into the mud. He had been like this ever since he was born. A father who would search the whole house for rats every time he drank. Those guys who relied on their writing status to come pick a fight. Those guys who relied on their key status to come pick a fight, and those managers with sticky fingers. The more he struggled, the more his body was dragged into the mire. In the end, in this tragic reality, he suffocated to death. Hyeon has always lived in this kind of environment, no matter how painful the situation is. After a long time, a person will slowly get used to it. I've already gotten used to being beaten and used to enduring it. Maybe I can only go along with this reality and live on, because other than this, I can't think of any other way to live. My memory went back to that day at school again. When I fell, it was Seo Haeyeong who helped me up. When I lifted my head, I saw his handsome face with a smile on it, as he asked me if I was okay. In Hyeon's eyes, at that moment, Seo Haeyeong looked like an angel. Next to them, Go Taegyeom started teasing Hyeon, saying he somehow managed to fall, even where there was nothing at all. But Ju Hyeon-woo immediately got nervous, asking if his knee was bleeding and whether they should go to the nurse's office to get medicine. While the two of them were arguing, Seo Haeyeong stayed very quiet, reaching out to straighten Hyeon's collar so that he would look clean and neat. In no time, he was done tidying him up, and Seo Haeyeong showed a satisfied smile. Hyeon's face flushed red all at once. He lifted his eyes to look at Seo Haeyeong and whispered a thank you. Go Taegyeom said he was hungry and kept urging them to go eat. But Ju Hyeon-woo insisted that Hyeon should go to the school infirmary first. Hyeon looked at Seo Haeyeong, who was walking ahead, shoulder to shoulder with them, and he could clearly feel that, whether it was in life or with friends or in any other aspect, Seo Haeyeong's world stands firm. At that moment, Seo Haeyeong turned back and called Haewon to follow, as if naturally pulling Haewon in too, walking together into that playing house kind of world of his. Seo Haeyeong's occasional, sudden actions really would give Haewon a fright, but Haewon truly doesn't want to return to that swamp-like reality. He doesn't want to leave that sense of stability Seo Haeyeong gives him. The everyday life of living with Seo Haeyeong is so bright it feels like it can shine into a person's heart. But now, everything has gone dark. In the past, it clearly wasn't like this. Now all I can feel is fear. Suddenly, I thought of home. That shabby, tiny house is the only place where I can catch my breath. I thought about changing the old lock as soon as I went back. I no longer even know how many people still have a key. It really should be changed. Those 4 photos that hold the past, and that 1 photo that holds the present. All of them were neatly gathered by Seo Haeyeong and put away into this side of the drawer. Go Taegyeom finished packing his things and came out. Then, he saw Haewon sitting on the floor. Looking at Haewon's back like that, Go Taegyeom was reminded again of the scene from 3 days ago. His fingers, out of his control, wanted to land on the top of his head. He still remembers when he went to find Seo Haeyeong back then. He asked, "Did you really have to go that far with Haewon?" But Seo Haeyeong instead retorted, "Wasn't he the one who started it first?" Things turning out like this was something even Go Taegyeom hadn't anticipated. As he passed by, he reached out and gently rested his hand on Haewon's head. "Let's go home. The vacation is over." At the very last moment of summer, autumn was about to arrive. Everyday life had returned again. What had changed was this. The old fan was moved to the corner of the room. I no longer had to go over to Seo Haeyeong's house to hang out. And I received a new cell phone as a gift. After the vacation ended, Seo Haeyeong and Go Taegyeom went back to school, while Ju Hyeon-woo went on a trip with his family. Even though no one spoke out loud about what had happened at the villa, that vacation still left a huge shadow in Haewon's heart. Like a nightmare, it clung tightly to his ankles and refused to let go. In the early hours before dawn, he would sometimes suddenly find himself unable to breathe. He would frantically pack his luggage, wanting only to run away from here. He would think that as long as he left this place, went somewhere unfamiliar where everything was new, he could start all over again. But what if the money ran out? What if he couldn't pay the rent or even afford to eat? On top of that, what if he suddenly got sick? And by then, there wasn't even a single person who could help him. In a world without Seo Haeyeong, my fear would surge up all at once. So I told myself, just hold on for a few more months, save up enough money first, and then leave this place. Only I had no idea where I should go.